Good evening, everyone. The time is 7:02. I'd like the meeting to order. Vice President Ferguson, would you do the invocation, please?
Yes, good evening. Father God, we just thank you. We give you reverence and we give you praise tonight. And Father God, we thank you for your loving kindness and your mercies that are new every morning. And Father God, we just ask that you would grace us with your peace and your wisdom and your presence. And we ask that you will help us be in alignment with your principles and your statutes as we have this meeting tonight. And Father God, I ask that you will bless everyone that's in participation, all the city officials, city employees, and the citizens of the city of Glenarden, and all who is associated with the city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Madam Clerk, could you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Councilwoman Fareed?
Here.
Councilwoman Guillaume? Councilman Hairston will not be here with us this evening. Councilman Herring?
Here.
Councilwoman Jones?
Here.
Council Vice President Ferguson?
Here.
Council President Curtis?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any opposition? Hearing none by unanimous consent, the agenda is hereby adopted. First on the agenda are the minutes from January sessions, the work session, the public hearing, the special work session, and the regular session. So that is available for public consumption and for council members to review. And we'll be voting to put those minutes into public record to finalize those at the upcoming regular session and in a couple of weeks. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation by Dr. Kofi Essel, advocating for better food options for the Glenarden community. Is Dr. Essel on the line?
Here.
All right. And will you need to share video?
Yes, my share my screen, yes.
Oh, okay, let me put that on. All right. Well, sir, thank you for taking the time to come to our meeting to show us how we can have better food options in the Glenarden community. The floor is yours.
Great. Thank you all for having me. I will not take long. Just wanted to lay out a proposal to see if there was a potential to work together to ultimately lead to improve outcomes for our citizens. I am a proud Glenarden citizen, been so since 2015, and I'm excited to share with you all some insights that I've been reflecting on with some of my other colleagues in the community as well. So let me go ahead and get started. A little bit about me, just a background. I am a community pediatrician, been for over 17 years based out of DC, working in Anacostia, seeing patients for multiple years from kids from age 0 to 21. And I'm also very particular about areas in food and nutrition. I spent years doing work in this arena and have worked on the local, regional, and national level, pushing forward policy and standing up against the worsening diet-related disease that we've seen across the country. One of the things that you all gave me a chance to do last year, actually 2 years ago now, was speak at your cancer awareness event. And in this event, you gave me a chance to speak about food and nutrition. And I had a very visible, very tangible message that I tried to really get across. And this message was simple, and it was simply that our food was killing us. Our food was killing us. I think it's important to recognize that I'm not trying to be inflammatory with me saying this, but I really mean something by this. This is something that I stand by, that when we look at our environment, our environment heavily influences our behaviors and our decisions, which leads to health outcomes. And we can talk about this in many different ways, but one of the messages I tried to get across in that time was that one of the factors that leads to poor health outcomes, one of them at times, not always, and we need to be clear about that. Cancer is not all about what you've done, what you haven't done, but one of the things that leads to health outcomes or even worsening of one's cancer is poor nutrition. Let me give you a little bit more background before I lay out exactly what I'm talking about today. When I look across the country, what we've learned is that when you look at US adults, there's more than half of adults have at least one diet-related chronic disease. The number is 60%. 60% of US adults have at least one diet-related chronic disease. 40% have at least two or more. If you look specifically at certain diet-related chronic conditions, let's say hypertension first, we know that 1 in 2 adults has hypertension. Pre-diabetes or diabetes. We know that 1 in 2 adults has pre-diabetes or diabetes. Overweight or obesity, 3 out of 4 adults has overweight or obesity. It is concerning. We're seeing these rates get higher and higher, and it is literally killing us. If you look at a number of risk factors all around the country that lead to poor outcomes, death, that is the number one outcome, the number one risk factor rather, that leads to early death is what? A poor diet. Poor diet, poor nutrition is the leading risk factor to early death. It is the leading risk factor to early death. When we've talked about this around the city, there are a few things that we keep hearing time and time again. We see certain restaurants coming in and some that are coming in soon. And the question is, why are we putting that restaurant in this community? We keep hearing that come up over and over again. Other people say, well, how do we change our food choices in our community? How do we stand up and change some of these choices so we can put food in our communities that are not only going to be tasty, cost-effective, enjoyable, but also things that can actually improve our health, fight off disease, and maybe even prevent disease at the same time? The answer I hear is the same answer over and over again. We don't know. How do we do this? We don't know what steps to take. Now, I'm speaking to a council that has the skill set and the knowledge, and we are, as citizens, want to know what does it take to move this forward, to use the right levers, to change the food in our local communities, to therefore be able to change the health of our citizens. My proposition today is simple. I'm asking if the city of Glenarden would consider participating in the 2024 Clinical Public Health Summit on obesity to develop a City of Glenarden advocacy toolkit. And the question, of course, you're asking is, what is the 2024 Clinical Public Health Summit on obesity? Over the last 9 years, I've been leading a summit as a professor at the George Washington University School of Medicine. And as a professor, I've been leading this summit on obesity. And it's not about weight. That's not what it's about. It's about looking from the public health population lens and looking at factors that influence poor health outcomes. Every year, we get a chance to work with 6 different organizations or state agencies throughout the city, throughout the region, who are interested in working together to propose an intervention, to propose or develop a tool. Here are some examples last year that we worked with. We worked with a group called Shire, the Summit Health Institute for Research and Education. They developed a wellness circle for youth and teens on improving health outcomes. We work with the DC Department of Corrections. They developed ways in which they can improve their nutrition in their local jail systems. We work with DC WIC, Women, Infants, and Children program, to fight off the decreasing rates of WIC use after the age of 1, which is a tool that can be used to improve overall health outcomes. A variety of teams we work with over the 9 years, and our proposition and our hope is that the city of Glenarden would consider working with us this year over the course of a short period of time. We are asking for 5 to 6 hours from June 24th to 26th. It does not have to be one person. It doesn't have to be everybody. It could be different people. But the question we're asking is, we need a simple proposal, which I would help to write up the proposal and ask the right questions that we all can be on agreement on. After that, we would submit that proposal to the teams. We would have a select group of graduate students, 30 students who would be focused on this project and this project alone. They would look at best practices around the country, grab from different toolkits, and figure out how they can design a specific toolkit for the city of Glenarden. On June 24th through 26th, we would simply ask for an hour and a half on that Monday, the 24th, to present the proposal. And then on that Tuesday, 1 hour virtually, for you to hear the updates from the student proposals, things that they've come across, things that they've learned, if they're moving in the right direction. And then lastly, on that Wednesday, we would ask if somebody could be a representative to hear their proposal presented to you. If it meets the mark, everything that they develop would go right back to the city of Glenarden, and the ownership would be with the city of Glenarden. What would come from this summit and what would benefit the city of Glenarden? What we view is that, this is my last slide, you will learn from the best practices that are being done regionally, locally around the country that we can then implement locally. We can create a usable and adaptable template. Whatever's created, it's yours, can be created and adapted to make sure it fits what we are trying to achieve in our community. Number three, we can develop a toolkit that can be replicated in other cities that are also trying to advocate to improve the health outcomes of the citizens in their community. And lastly, we'd be able to support graduate students that will be providing care to patients and families locally, regionally, and around the country as well. I want to thank you all for your time and leave you all with a quote from the famous Hippocrates: "Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food." I'll open up the floor for any questions, and if you want to talk about this any further. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Dr. Essel. Are there any questions from council members? Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Dr. Essel, I have a question about what you're proposing. The city does have a few pieces of legislation that have been passed related to health outcomes. One, we've passed a health and wellness advisory committee that would be the perfect avenue for this type of discussion to continue, not just around obesity, but other health concerns in the city. And I'm not sure if you've seen that piece of legislation or if you knew that that committee existed and if you would consider participating as a member of that committee. We also have two other pieces of legislation, one around a community garden and one around farmers market. Both are specifically being proposed and passed for the purposes of creating healthy food options in the city of Glenarden. So curious about what your involvement could be with that. And then finally, we recently passed an intermunicipal and county task force that would bring together key stakeholders around the municipality and within the county to talk about the issues and advocate for what we want to see in our community. And I'm just curious if you've seen any of those pieces of legislation and if you have any interest in being involved in what we've already put forward to address these concerns in the city.
I have not seen the second and third legislation. I don't know where to see legislation, so I apologize for that. I don't know policy speak, so I apologize for that. But in terms of the first proposition you made or you mentioned, I've heard of that before. And I have heard of this group being developed, and I saw a message around that about a year ago. So it's exciting to hear that thing it's continuing to grow. The legislation around farmers markets and community gardens, I have not heard about that. I think that's an awesome thing that is moving forward as well. And the third one, I'm forgetting which one you mentioned there, but I have not heard of that third one either when you mentioned it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council members? Okay, Dr. Essel, is there a time frame that you would like to hear from the city as it relates to moving forward with this proposal?
Yes, so we are selecting our final 6 groups by the end of February. So we would appreciate if there is a desire to move forward, that we could team up and hear back before the end of February.
Okay. And Councilwoman Fareed, is this something that perhaps the Committee on Health and Wellness that they can take up in conjunction with Dr. Essel?
that would be the desire. I think that right now with the limited resources the city has to dedicate to, projects that I'm not really sure that introducing something new or in addition to would make sense as opposed to kind of utilizing what we've already put in place and kind of having to sit under that.
And who are the members of the committee?
We don't have him. That's what I'm saying. If Dr. Essel would be a part of that committee, that would help move that forward.
All right. Well, Dr. Essel, thank you so much for your informative presentation. Either way, you'll be hearing something from us soon.
Awesome. Thank you all for having me, and I appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. Next up is a presentation on the Clean Water Partnership with the Prince George's County Department of Environmental staff. Ms. Havita, are you online?
Actually, this is Mary Abe. Unfortunately, my screen does not seem to be working. Let me try to see if I can get my video going. I'm here from the Prince George's County Department of the Environment to talk about the Prince George's County Urban Tree Program. And I do have a slide presentation. So if you would like me to begin sharing my screen, hopefully that would work.
Sure.
I apologize again for whatever reason my my camcord is not it's not working.
I can't get out video either.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll be able to see my screen. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay. I'll try to be as succinct as Dr. Essel. He was very good. Just to begin with, you're wondering why we're here today. This is about trying to plant trees within the town of Glenarden and other municipalities within Prince George's counties. Trees are more than beautification. They're essential to climate resilience, and they're also essential to environmental justice. I don't know if you're aware, but Prince George's County adopted a climate action plan in 2022, and natural resource protection and trees are one of the many tools that we will need to become climate resilient in the very near future. I'm going to quickly go through the reasons why trees are important. Carbon sequestration, which is going to be key as we move forward. This is about our future. It's not so much for who we are today, but it's about our future people that are students today, young people. The carbon sequestration today will make for a better future tomorrow. Trees reduce localized flooding. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the tree canopy intercepts and evaporates stormwater as it comes down. So I guess you could say it's actually the cheapest type of stormwater management that you could put, plus it beautifies the streets. Then trees reduce temperatures, and that's the real reason why we want to put trees in the urban communities of Prince George's County. I'm a Prince George's County resident myself. I live in the town of Mount Rainier, and I also live in close proximity to Chillum, where there's really a tree equity issue. Just a little bit about trees. One tree, basically, once we plant it, it takes about 15 years to get to a size that we would say a trunk is about 7 inches to 19 inches. And just one of those trees will produce about 2 tons of oxygen. It will be responsible for 1,700 gallons of water that could be through stormwater management. But if you take that and you ramp it up and you go to 1,200 trees, everything goes up in exponential quantities. So once you put a tree in, that's what's really critical from an environmental justice standpoint. Things may not seem like they're changing that much right now, but you need only look in California to see how things are changing out west. We've just been very fortunate in Prince George's County. One of the greatest vulnerabilities that Prince George's County has will be water, basically flooding from extreme precipitation events and heat. So you might ask, what is the big difference? Visually comparing the same street across jurisdictional boundaries, I'm showing this as an example. This is to the right. You have Chillum Road in Prince George's County. That's right near where I live in Mount Rainier. And you can see there's no trees. And that is the road that was just improved. That's the sidewalk was put there. Literally across the border, the same road, it turns into Michigan Avenue. And this is what it looks like, trees. And you're like, what difference does that make? Well, this is actually an example of Glenarden, Maryland to the right. And this is Montgomery County, Silver Spring. Almost the exact kind of housing stock, one with trees, one without trees. You can only go and look at the property values and you'll start to understand that there are some issues here when it comes to trees. So trees actually increase residential home values. People actually pay more to have trees in many communities, and trees can reduce crime. So I just want to get quickly on to what our program is really about. I had sent earlier kind of our step process. This is a no-cost program to the town of Glenarden and the other municipalities. This is funded through grant funding through the state of Maryland. This is part of the effort to plant 5 million trees in the state of Maryland. So the first step is basically what I'm doing tonight, which is telling you about the program. The second step is, once that you would like to move forward with this program, then we would actually have our team come out and identify all the different opportunities of street tree plantings within the community. After that's done, we would propose a concept, and this is the sort of way that we do it. We quantify how many trees we could put in. And then from there, we would come to the town and we would ask for a resolution to be passed to allow right of access to the right of way so that we could install the trees. The trees that we install are 2 to 2.5 inch caliber in size. They're pretty good size. We also we help with the town in an opt-out period because some residents do not want trees in front of their house. But I do have to say, from a perspective of really trying to make a difference, opt-out is not the best thing. Street tree canopy is really about a cohesive look across the public right-of-way where you plant trees, and these lines of trees actually create shade and change the environment and change the look of the cityscape. And then step 4, we start to plant. These are examples of some of the trees that we're using in Forest Heights. We're planting approximately 1,600 trees in the town of Forest Heights right-of-way. And this is an example to the left when you can see that's kind of the size of the trees. And then at about 15 years, if you put a maple in, this one in the middle is about what it looks like. And when a tree gets to be about 25 to 30 years old, the one to the far right is what it will look like. And these are some examples of the understory. One of the problems that we have in Prince George's County, we have aerial utilities. So when we put trees in, we can't always put in the shade trees that we would want to do. And then step 5, once the trees are completed, the program will go through with a tree app and GIS locate where all the trees are and will give the town a full tree inventory that they can work with their tree commission or green team to continue stewardship of it. This includes a 2-year warranty. Upon completion of the street tree plantings, the town would then be responsible for the maintenance care of those trees. And this is just a quick look at some of the trees that might be proposed. The planting, because it's through grant funding with the state of Maryland, we only plant native trees. And I guess with that, I will stop sharing and see if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members? Councilwoman Jones.
Thank you, Council President. You made a comment in your presentation that trees stop crime. Can you give me some examples of how trees stop crime?
I believe it's in I would have to go back and look at the exact studies that have done it, but really it's about perception of the community. And when you live in a community where there's trees and living things, and when you have a street that's cool and shaded, people tend to act differently. They tend to, actually, I believe Carol Barth, are you on the line, Carol? Would you like to comment on that?
I am on the line, and if I can just jump in here, there's about 25 years worth of data on this. Francis Kuo is one of the well-known researchers that's done this. And it kind of boils down to 2 things. One is when people see particularly mature trees in a community, it signals that folks take care of the community and that people are outside. So that's not a good environment for a criminal. They're more likely to slide on down to somewhere else. It's like the opposite of, you might have heard of broken window syndrome, right? If things are run down, people think they can get away with more. And then the second reason is that trees reduce stress and reduce violence. And this has been shown in many areas, in large apartments and in public housing and things, that when you add in the trees, the violence goes down.
Thank you. I have one other question, and that is concerning the maintenance. So with the maintenance, the county or the city is going to come out and get those leaves up every fall?
No, that would be
Bags
the
and all.
responsibility of the town.
I'm sorry.
That would be the responsibility of the town.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Outside of the maintenance, which I know comes later, what resources from the city are needed in the initial phases to support this project?
Well, I think it's basically what happens is really the willingness to do this, and then the support with the citizens in order to make sure that that the project is the logistics. So essentially our partner is the Clean Water Partnership, which utilizes county-based businesses to install the trees and other sorts of county-based businesses. But from there, really, we're pretty self-sufficient. Once we would go out and take a look to see how many trees we could actually put in, we would work with the town administrative staff or the council to show you the plan and show how many trees would be there. Then we would essentially install. Where we would need help is we would need help identifying a staging area within the town, and then logistics of which streets we would go through. But we would definitely need to have some public meetings to reach out to people to talk to them about the trees and what comes next. One thing I want to be clear about with our tree planting program, we use a technique called a tree diaper. And a tree diaper is something that you can put at the ring of the tree that basically absorbs rainwater. And so for up to 30 days, the tree doesn't really need water because this particular structure or this particular practice that we put on top of the tree is able to absorb rainwater and create a reservoir and slowly release it into the tree. So the tree actually becomes less maintenance during the establishment period of 2 years, and the program has a 2-year warranty. However, it does not cover vandalism. It doesn't cover incidental removal of trees, that if somebody decides, they're going to cut the tree down, we don't cover that. But I hope that answers your question. So the county staff and CWP and our consultants would be at working with the town. This is not us just coming in and doing something. This is our coordination with the town would be critical. And then we would hope, if you have a green team, that we can start working with your green team to support the health and care of these trees moving forward.
And I would also just add that Prince George's County has the most robust Master Gardener program in the state. And we do have Master Gardeners that can be around. We can set up events where they can answer residents' questions about the easiest and simplest ways to deal with the trees in their yard so that they're a good resource and not a problem.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you. I have one other question. I know my mom has a silver maple in the backyard, and someone came and did some work on it, and we had an arborist come through, and he looked at it and he said there are laws in the state of Maryland that protect those trees. So will we be ensured that any tree that's planted that needs that citizens will be aware that they cannot just have anybody come and cut them or do anything to them, that it's best to seek out someone that is aware of those laws?
Well, we have that there is actually a roadside permit required in the state of Maryland to plant trees in the right of way, and there are really laws around that. And so the county would certainly do its best to work with the town because we don't want anybody coming in and cutting these trees, because it's a sizable investment. Make no mistake about the investment that would be made in these trees. In terms of, things like the maples and things that we would plant, we have a very defined native plant list that are particularly suitable for street tree plantings. So we would not be planting silver maples because they tend to have a very aggressive root system. The trees that we're planting are actually very much suitable for an urban space such as your right of way. And I do want to, I want to emphasize with the right of way, a cohesive tree planting where I think the best example that I can really think of is in our doorstep, which is the District of Columbia, the nation's capital. Some of the most iconic streets in the world are tree lined, and they are in the nation's capital. And so when you look at those streets, and then you compare our streets in Prince George's County with fragmented trees, trees that are cut in half, some places without trees, we need to do something about that. And that's what this is really about. This is about taking up our game. This is about getting what we should have had all along. And so the vision is hopefully to one day when you put these trees in tandem down the street, even if they're smaller on the other side to work with the utility lines, but larger on the other, you will have a sense of space that you start to see in the district. Like I said, there's some absolutely breathtaking areas that are urban in our nation's capital. And really, when it comes down to it, it has to do with how the trees and the street and the buildings all interact together. So hopefully that sort of answers your question.
Okay, so at one time on Glenarden Parkway, we had dogwoods that lined the whole from one end of Glenarden Parkway to the other in the springtime. They were very beautiful, but for some reason, somebody had them all cut down. So we did at one time have a beautiful, and I still have
we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that again.
Yeah, we have those pictures to show that. And also, so you're saying the maintenance is also going to be done by the city of Glenarden, where when it comes time to have them pruned or cut back for maybe because they're too high or they're covering a safety sign.
Yes,
that would be done by the city of Glenarden.
Yes, ma'am. But I think it's gonna, what I would say is that we're taking care of the first 2 years in terms of if there's incidental pruning. We would come in, the tree would be established, mulched, watered, and we would make sure everything was watered. Incidental pruning that would have to happen over the 2 years would done. But at the end of it, it's like sending your child to school, it's time. Here we go.
All right.
That's the way. But I will say this very full-heartedly. Trees are a major part of the equation for our state to become climate resilient. This is not about beautification anymore. This is really about becoming climate resilient. And so it is my thought that with the very bold goals by the state of Maryland, I believe that there will be ongoing support for cities and municipalities which do support trees, because carbon sequestration is going to become the name of the game. Shade, temperature moderation. And just as a side note, Prince George's County is now partnering with NASA to do an urban heat island study. And so we will have an urban heat island study and just early results, places like Glenarden, Mount Rainier, Bladensburg in particular, it's red hot, when you look at those studies. And so they have satellite imagery where they can show how over time things have changed. So it's coming.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councilman Harry?
Yes, I just want to say in 2018, the city of Glenarden spent over $400,000 to remove invasive species and plant new trees. So I'm not sure why we were selected again to plant more trees, especially over in my ward. The picture you showed was actually the street I live on, which is Johnson Avenue, when you compared it with Montgomery County. And I'm telling you, when we came up with our tree plan back then in 2018, one of the biggest issues was people didn't want trees in the public right of way. That was the issue that they had over here in my area, because I have a lot of seniors. And again, a lot of them are taking their trees down because they don't want to wreck leaves. So we're going to plant more trees. Also, we have overhead wires, and these overhead wires are now growing through trees. And then what happens is the utilities come through and just cut a big V in the middle of the tree,
Mhm.
and they look terrible.
Right.
So I'm just trying to figure out what precipitated Glenarden being chosen, because I live in what they call Glenarden Woods, which has nothing but old oak trees and trees all over the place, and we're completely surrounded by trees. Oak trees is like 60 years old, or and some are even older. I know the trees in my yard are actually so old I gotta take them down. But again, I guess I'm not understanding, putting more trees in this area. And as for the trees that were on Glenarden Parkway, they were actually hybrid pear trees, and they took them down because they kept on splitting. A number of them fell on cars, and we had to, we had liability issues, so we had to pay for people's windshields and tops of their roofs and car damage and everything. So they decided to take them all down because they kept on splitting because they were so old. They got so tall, and the utilities just cut the middle out of them, which threw them off balance, which caused them to split. So these trees, I'm like, I mean, and again, also planting trees in a tree box in my area, that's basically takes away a parking space, and we already having parking issues. So I'm just trying to figure out how did they come to Glenarden as an area that needs more trees? I'm not understanding that.
Well,
When we
we've
have
actually, the county has, just background on me, I'm the Deputy Associate Director of the Sustainability Division of the Department of the Environment. I work under Don Hawkins Nixon, who is the Sustainability Associate Director. And as part of the work that we do in Sustainability Division, we've been doing tree canopy assessments and comparative analysis between areas with high impervious areas and lack of tree cover. And Glenarden is definitely falling into those areas. The truth is that most of our municipalities, we've actually done a tree shade study, and we know what percentage of canopy. Off the top of my head, I don't have the study in front of me, but let's put it this way. The county itself, the average tree canopy is 52%. Most of the communities inside the Beltway, well, it's probably closer to 28%. That means that almost 70% of your land cover is an impervious surface. Could be a roof, could be lawn, could be a sidewalk, could be a road. With climate change, those particular types of surfaces will put the heat on high. And so the trees, when we look at particular communities for more trees, that's what we start to look at. But honestly, too, this is the program is young, and so we're looking for people that want trees. And so, I understand what you're saying about, the elderly not wanting those trees in the right of way. But I think I need to be really clear about what I believe the right of way is. I used to work at the Department of Public Works and Transportation in Prince George's County. And the right of way, if you put a sidewalk in, you do curbing, it's for the betterment of the community. It's so somebody can walk down the street. And trees are no different. When you walk down the street and three houses decide to allow trees to be put in front of their house, and five houses don't. When somebody walks up and down that street and they hit that heat, when they go under those trees and they're not, as far as I'm concerned, that's an asset that was missed. And so I would be very careful about the opt-out option, because really the person in front of that house or behind that right of way, it's really the town's right of way, and this is for the betterment of the community. I can't emphasize enough, our climate is changing. For us to make a difference, we must plant the trees now. We must. Otherwise, it's not going to do any good 15 years from now, because you won't have the trees to give you the shade. So from a standpoint of how we selected you, we're talking to many different municipalities. And we thought that there was interest in Glenarden, but we certainly understand your reservations in those terms.
Thank you.
Did that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
And if I could just very quickly piggyback, the other thing we didn't really talk about tonight were the community health benefits of trees. Sort of going on from your first presentation, communities with low tree canopy have higher rates of childhood asthma, higher rates of stroke and heart disease. So again, that's why we say it's not just a nice to have, it's a need to have. And we just want to be sure that the municipalities in Prince George's County get what they deserve and get the tools they need to continue to be vibrant and healthy communities.
Yes, and to just get to hop onto Carol's point with that, our sister agency, the Department of Public Works and Transportation, is responsible for the county roads. They have a huge tree planting program where folks that live on county streets are getting those trees. I mean, they are planting them by the thousands. And so this is what the Department of the Environment is been tasked with doing, is working with municipalities to make sure that they get the same thing. But it's a little more difficult because you all own your municipality, you own your right of way, you have those rights. But I just want to emphasize time is of the essence with these trees to put them in to make a difference.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Have a good one. Okay. All right. Next up on the agenda.
Excuse me, Council President.
Yes, Councilwoman Fareed.
Are we going to discuss the items that were just presented to us as a council? I thought, you know, being that we're in a work session, it would make sense for us to discuss what our thoughts are on these items now.
Certainly. I mean, it's open for discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know we had questions for the presenters, but I don't know if we're discussing what was presented amongst us.
Well, the floor is yours if you would like to have something to say on the topic.
Yeah, I think both ideas are great ideas, but I do really have a concern about us bringing more actions into the city when we're not really moving on the things that we've already passed. There's a lot of legislation that has yet to be acted on that requires the administration's attention and focus. So that would be my only concern. So I kind of agree with Councilman Herring and kind of where was it raised from? You know, the need for the trees. I'm not sure if that was something that we heard about and then we said, hey, come and present to us, or, you know, what that is. But I just generally have a really deep concern with the fact that we're not moving things forward that we've already committed to do.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. Is there any other discussion on the topics that were presented tonight? Councilwoman Jones?
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with Councilwoman Fareed. How was this the Clean Water Partnership brought about? Did somebody come to the city and present this to the city, or did we reach out to somebody?
Ms. Habita, do you know the answer to that?
Sure. We were approached through the grant process that there was some money that would not, that the tree planting would be done without any cost to the city. So it was an in-kind kind of benefit to the city that we didn't have to lay out any money. So it came through John O'Connor, and who is our grant writer. I think he had his hand up, but I don't know if he wants to do anything now.
I did, yes.
Sorry, Mr. O'Connor. I thought you raised your hand for the next topic. I did not know that you were part of this topic, Mr. O'Connor.
Yes, Mr. President and Council. So I've been working with the Clean Water Partnership for several jurisdictions in what is an in-kind grant program, either large in scale or small in scale. Forest Heights being the largest of 1,600 trees that are being planted currently. And the reason for that is it falls through the grant side, and they're getting all the money from the state. They're doing the heavy lifting on the top end, and we're doing the work on the bottom end. So the value of this in-kind grant is up to $1 million in funding to make this happen. So this opportunity was available. I saw it from the grant side. It was a program I was already successfully working, and based on the evaluations of the Department of the Environment and the necessity for the trees, and also the fact that the county on the county roads that traverse the jurisdiction are going to be installing these trees anyway, I felt it was a good idea to evaluate, or at least take the steps to see where this could tie into the community garden, because they're also can provide grant funding for the community garden and the master gardeners as an overall project of moving those particular projects forward that the council members just spoke about. And that might be one or two, but I'm working on trying to get those moved forward. And as far as city staff, I have a great relationship with the Department of the Environment, Prince George's County, and what I can tell you is your staff would not be tapped with having to do much of the coordination or anything. That's something I would handle. I'm familiar. I know their processes, and I would be lock in step with them. Ultimately, it is a great grant opportunity, but if it's not a fit for the city, I understand, and that's a decision for all of you. But thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Council President.
Yes.
So in conclusion of my question, so is it possible that we can get an analysis of where they think that the city may need trees, get the analysis from the county, and then determine that from there, or do we have to accept the grant and accept whatever they bring before us as far as where the trees are going to be planted?
So my experience in Forest Heights is, and the reason the resolution is there is so they have the right to go into the right of ways. So you have not technically accepted anything at that point. You've just given permission for them to go into the right of way, acknowledging the program, and they go out and they actually do a study. They mark every single place that a tree could go or should go, and also the dead trees or the invasive species, and put that all out there and come up with a plan that's best for the city. I don't want to speak for the county, but I know that let's just say you don't want to do the entire city and you figure there's a particular area. Believe me, they want to get trees to as many jurisdictions as they can. So if you don't want to put in 1,600 trees and you want to set a limit and say, hey, look, we really want to get 400 trees and this is the area that we can do it and make it most impactful, I believe that they'd be willing to work with that. But ultimately, that's up to them. And I can't speak for them, but I do know we had those conversations.
All right, sir. So I'm sorry. This is it. One last statement or question is city properties that the city owns that are what the county now calls non-conforming. Will we be able to, if those areas needed trees, I'm wondering if we would be able to use the trees, have trees planted there.
Absolutely. And as a part of the overall project, the bigger project, so there's public spaces in Forest Heights right now that were recently done with parks and have open space. So what we've done is we've found trees to put into those areas to provide shade, nice walking areas, sitting trees, things like that, and areas that may have soil erosion problems. We're able to put trees in there as well. So public areas are always great. And quite frankly, they are the easiest to deal with. So, yeah, I think there's a way to make it happen, even though on a small scale or big scale, it might, as long as there's a happy medium to be found. And I understand everybody's concerns that were voiced this evening.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. Councilwoman Fareed.
Thank you. And thank you for that context on how we got here. And maybe this is for another session, Council President, but I really think we need to have a strategy in place for how we're approaching things, particularly as it relates to grants. It's great that there are so many grants available, but we can't just kind of going after the grants that specifically relate to legislation that we have already passed. Otherwise, we risk with these grants not really being able to use them because we don't have the right resources or project teams to be able to manage whatever projects it is that the grants are being used for, or deprioritizing what we've already said we were going to do because now we need to focus our efforts on fulfilling the requirements for the grant. So I understand the concept of it being free money, but we also have to be strategic in our approach for what we're doing so that we're utilizing the limited resources we have. And I'm not just talking about, funding. I'm also talking about people. We can't move forward on any of these projects. And there's some really significant ones. We have, Councilman Herring mentioned it a couple of meetings ago, or maybe it was the last meeting. What are we doing about this parking situation? We have, resolutions out there for sidewalk improvements. Things that could have grant funding that really need to be moved forward and that are arising from the concerns expressed by the citizens. So the legislation that we're passing is not just kind of arbitrary nice things to have, but mostly they come from citizens are having concerns about particular things. We as their elected representatives are bringing forth legislation to address those things. So any grant funding activities, anything that the administration is doing should all be in support of executing on those resolutions, because that's how it works. The council passes the legislation, the administration executes on it.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. Are there any other Councilman Herring, sir?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Councilwoman Fareed said, because it is kind of bothering me that we're just throwing every grant that's out there we're applying for without finding out historically what we need and what happened. Like I said, we spent $400,000 on a bunch of trees. We actually had a tree plan actually done, and that's something else that needs to be looked at, the tree plan that we already have in place. Because we planted trees based on their blooming season, based on where they are in the city, after eradicating all the invasive species. So to just start planting trees again without following the original tree plan that we paid good money for, and not following up, and not doing something in line with what we have, I think we need to look at that first before we move forward, even apply for the grant, because I don't want to hold up the county, waste the county's time, and hold up the county with something that we may not even want when we've already have a plan in place that we may can build on it. But to sit here and just say we're going to throw trees out there just because it's a grant out there for it, I think we need to be more particular on what we're applying for, and that information should be brought to the council prior to applying for it or moving forward with it, or even bringing a resolution. It should be something that we should discuss to see if we really want that, to save everybody a lot of time. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Herring.
Council President.
Mr. O'Connor?
So the one thing about grants is, and I think everybody understands it, and that they rotate in cycles. So all the programs that are out there that the council has put resolutions forward or directed to, unfortunately, some of them were out of grant cycles. So even the sidewalk program, just that's the Department of Housing Community Development. So that there is definitely a path that is being followed. And there's no application that's been filled out for this particular grant for the county. There was no paperwork besides the resolution, which is the starting point to have this conversation. So I'm more than happy to follow any path or direction that's given for the grants that I'm given to make them happen, so it can further the mission of the city. So I just wanted to make sure that all those are on my radar, and I've been directed to follow them by staff. And as soon as those grant cycles open up, believe me, I will be putting in for those grants so we can get those things accomplished.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate hearing that about the grant cycles, and I think we can all appreciate that that's the way it works. I think my biggest concern, though, is that some of these pieces of legislation have been sitting around for several cycles of grant applications. So I think we just need to have a good look at what we already have passed, prioritize those items and then plan our attack that way so that we're knowing, where we can obtain grant funding from, but also where we don't have to obtain grant funding, because a number of these pieces of legislation were passed with the purpose of using ARPA funds. And while in general, it would be great to use other people's money, ARPA money needs to be used this year. So I think, projects shouldn't be put on hold because we're trying to find a grant for them when there's already money that's available to move them forward.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. And Miss Mary, I see that your hand is raised in relation to this topic.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to clarify some things. This is not a grant. The county pursues the money, manages the money, manages the grant, and then does the installation. So the town would not have the burden of grant management or pursuing the grant. This is a countywide initiative with all 27 municipalities. And so what we are doing, we're pursuing every means to put trees in. So to give that some clarity. And then also too, from a programmatic perspective, this is not an all or nothing deal. We will work with you. If you have public spaces that you would prefer to get treed first, if you did want to work with us, that would be prioritized. If you have an existing tree planting plan, we will work with that tree planting plan. This is not about the county coming in and putting something here because we have to fulfill requirements. That's not what it is. But I just wanted to clarify, this is not a grant that the town would have to apply for. This is about first come, first serve. If you want to be part of the program and get trees put in, we'll work with you. If not, we'll work with you in the future if the money is available to put the trees in. Thank you.
And Miss, I'm sorry, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Abe?
Abe. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there a timeline for a decision on this?
Well, well, there is a time, we have a grant cycle coming up that we are applying to the Chesapeake Bay Trust and also EPA to get a very wide ranging grant opportunity to plant trees in. Bladensburg, the town of Bladensburg has already said that they want to be part of the tree planting program, Mount Rainier and some other municipalities. We also work with HOAs and churches and schools. So we'll use, we'll use those forward as whoever wants to be part of that application, but there's no obligation. But frankly, we would want to know the way our process works from the point in which we get out into the right of way or we start looking at a design. It takes a couple months. And so if you agreed to do this, if there was a resolution, these tree plantings wouldn't be occurring until the fall of 2024, fall to winter. Because it takes time. This is, you have a very large town, you have a lot of spaces, and it takes significant analysis and effort. And that in and of itself is worth a lot of money. And again, I'm a registered landscape architect with 35 years of experience. And so these planting plans, they can take some time, and we do have the expertise to work with you. But I just want to be clear, this is not all or nothing, okay? So we just want to work with the towns.
Thank you. All right, if there are no more comments from council members, hearing none, then we will close this discussion and move on to the next item on the agenda. Okay, next item are the legislations on docket to be passed this month. First up is the ordinance 04-2024 code chapter 149 vehicles and traffic updates needed for placement of speed cameras and red light cameras. This has already come through to the council. This was put on hold during the last regular session due to concerns related to I guess the decision of where the camera should be. The attorney has looked at it. Their updates, the updates that were requested have been made. And I spoke with Mr. Karpinski, and Mr. Karpinski also sent a email saying that this piece of legislation is ready to move forward with those adjustments. Are there any questions related to this piece of legislation? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to the next one. The next one is an ordinance granting a renewal of the cable franchise to Comcast Maryland LLC and authorizing a franchise agreement. So, are there any questions or comments related to this piece of legislation? Pull it up.
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring.
Yeah, to the city manager, are we only doing it for Comcast? We're not doing the franchise agreement for Verizon?
Comcast was the last franchise that was being negotiated by the INET network, which Sue Ellen Ferguson was the attorney for negotiations and get the ordinances, sample ordinances out to everybody to adopt. So I guess we are, the city of Glenarden did not, when it was negotiated and everybody was given a deadline of, I think it was January of 2023. According to Sue Ellen Ferguson, when we supplied the information for the INET connections here at City Hall, she said that it did not appear that the city had moved forward on an ordinance granting the renewal of the Comcast cable franchise. So she didn't say anything about Verizon at the time, so I don't know the status of the Verizon franchise. I think it's a multiple year as well. I can check with her to see if there's anything else that needs to be considered on Verizon, if you'd like.
I was just wondering, because last time we did this, we actually negotiated both at the same time. I think she was actually in charge of that too. So if she's saying it's not, then then it must not be. You may want to check with her just to be sure. But if she's saying it's not, then obviously it's not. But
Okay.
we paid our $600 fee, but we didn't have any legislation passed.
It doesn't look. Yeah, it doesn't look that way. We the council clerk checked the records, the legislative records, and did not find anything. Robin, you may want to speak to that.
Councilman Herring, I didn't find anything. The latest one was, I believe, 2014 or 2016. That's on
Right.
record.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any
That's
other
it.
questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there other questions related to this piece of legislation? Hearing none, we will move forward to a resolution to approve and work in partnership with the Glenarden Urban Street Tree Plan. I believe this is the one we were talking about, correct?
Yes,
Hold
yes, that's the same one.
Okay.
If you
All
want to table it and wait till later or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yep. Moving right along, a resolution to revise the rules, regulations, and fee schedule for the community center and Woodmore Town Center. Let me pull that up.
I'm sorry, Council President, point of order. You said the last resolution is going to be tabled
Well,
for the the urban tree street plan?
I made a
well,
comment to that effect that if council did not want to, go forward with it, we could not put it on the agenda for the upcoming meetings, the public hearing and the other regular budget session.
it hasn't officially been tabled, but it looks like we're heading that way. But certainly it's up to the council whether we want to table it or explore it further.
Okay.
What,
I just wanted to note on the resolution what the decision is going to be. Or is it going to be tabled? Is it what's happening with it? It's just going to sit in limbo?
it's up to the council. If there's, I mean, the resolution has been pushed forward. It has been in the hands of the citizens, so we can move it to the public hearing to see if citizens have a comment related to this piece of legislation. Maybe an overwhelming amount of citizens come out and speak in as a proponent for the tree plantings. So it'll stay on there, but in the regular session, if there has not been any traction, if it's the council's desire, then we will officially table it.
Okay.
I think. Okay. All right. What was that? The screen 2. Next up was the resolution to revise the rules, regulations, and fee schedules for the Gold Room. I thought we were breaking it up. Or are there any? I'm sorry, who's that?
That's Robin. There are two separate resolutions. One's for the Gold Room. The second one is, sorry, for the Woodmore Community Center.
Okay, thank you. I skipped it. Sorry. So first up is the resolution for the Gold Room. Are there any questions related to this piece of legislation?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Harry?
Yeah, since I wasn't at that meeting, I do have quite a few. Okay, on under discounts and gratis, there's a discount that says current Glenarden elected officials. A current city of Glenarden elected official may receive gratis once per year for a non-public interest event. So does that mean that the council member can get it for whatever they want to use it for? Is that what that means?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay,
Within the rules.
yeah, but that's that's valued at almost $1,200 to $2,000. That's almost like a gift to the council member that we're not giving to anybody else. That means I can go and have a private affair free of charge for a birthday party or whatever I want to do, and that's a $1,200 gift to me as a council member. I think that's an ethics issue, actually, and I think that needs to be looked into, because again, I mean, the ethics screws are very tight, and that's we're giving ourselves something that we're not giving anybody else, and that's valued at $1,200. And I know an in-kind gift is just as it in the ethics rules. The in-kind gift is just as it's still considered a monetary gift. Either way, but I'm not understanding why the council member would get a free event in a Gold Room for anything that they want to have. I mean, if you were talking about, a public function or something for, public hearing or something like that, even though we can use it for that, I don't know why we even being included in the gratis, because it's our room. We can use it how we want to, but, for city events, but privately, us getting a private event that could be valued at almost $2,000, that might be an ethics issue. I think that needs to be looked into. That's one of the items. I think on a master catering contract, again, with this catering thing, is really starting to drive me crazy, because again, on page 2 of this catering contract is saying, here we go again about all other catering options, including food prepared at home or unlicensed kitchen facilities that are prohibited by Prince George's County Health Department. So is that saying that people cannot bring in food from outside, and you have to have a caterer for the Gold Room? Is that what that's stating?
Well, sorry, what page are you on?
Page 2, yeah, under the It's go to the next page. It should be event. Let me see. Right there. After item number 4. Because we just went through this one time before. We already went through this one time before about, you don't need a caterer. If someone signs a waiver, they can bring in what they want to. Again, I think that we're not looking at this realistically. I just went to an event on Saturday in the community center over there at the rec. They had pizza, they had watermelon, they had other stuff that they brought in. And I guarantee you there was not one catering license to be had. And no one's going to shut them down because, again, you're renting the space. What we rent is a space. That's it. If somebody want to warm up their food, they can warm up the food. But again, we're sitting here saying that people can't bring food in, even if they sign a waiver. And we've always had people bring food in, and people have always signed a waiver. All our contracts contain a waiver. This catering mess is for a catering hall. We are not a catering hall. We do not cater. We do not offer catering. We do not cook in the kitchen. So I'm thinking, again, we got this on here, and it's going to be a bunch of back and forth again if somebody want to bring something in there. And I think that needs to come out. I mean, we continue to try to make this Gold Room. It is not Martin's Crosswinds. It is not any other major banquet catering hall. It's a space, that's it, that you're renting to have an event in. And I think we're going to just price ourselves right out of business. So I think that needs to be looked at. That needs to be addressed. And I don't understand why we keep on coming back to the same thing over and over again. My nephew just had an event at one of the county rooms, recreation rooms. They had food and everything, a birthday party, food and everything. They didn't need no waiver. They didn't need no catering license. They brought food in from outside. And every building around here in Prince George's County that the recreation, that the Glenarden, the Parks and Recs own, even down there on Almarwick Road, you can bring food into there. And you don't need no daggone catering license. I don't know why we're trying to be something that we're not when we're just a rental hall, when we're just renting space. So I think we're going to price ourselves out of business. We're already not making much money. And there's a lot of other halls out here that people can go to where they don't have to go through all this aggravation. And I don't know why we keep on putting ourselves in a position. And if they're going to have a caterer, yeah, you got to follow all the requirements of a caterer that's coming in to do it. But if people are going to bring food in from the outside, then make them sign a waiver saying you're not going to hold the city liable. We haven't been sued yet in over 60 years since the room has been open. And if we do, they sign a waiver, we won't be held responsible. So I'm just saying that needs to be looked at. That needs to come off of here. I mean, outside food should be allowed if people want to bring it in. I don't think nobody should have to be held to trying to get a caterer for a room that really doesn't offer the amenities that most of these other catering halls offer. That's one of the attractive qualities of the Gold Room, is that it gives you flexibility to do more, and you don't have to go broke trying to do it. So that's another issue. It was one other thing. I think that was it. Everything else I went through. And like I said, I didn't get a chance to read the whole thing. But again, I think that gratis thing is going to be an issue for the council members to get a free event. That's actually money in our pockets, because we won't have to pay for an event that everybody else would have to.
Okay.
And that's it. That's it on that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Fareed, I see that your hand is up next, but I also see that Ms. Bunn's hand is up. Is your comment in conjunction with Councilman Herring, or would you like her to respond? Okay, Councilwoman.
And I know I expressed this when we had our special meeting around the Gold Room stuff. I really do agree with the catering piece. I think that we're making it very difficult for people to host an event. And particularly people within our own community who should be able to have access to rent our space for, their event, and requiring a caterer with $1 million of insurance is just a lot. When we're talking about repasses, that may just be people contributing, making a dish and bringing it in. I understand the concern around a potential lawsuit, but if we're making them sign a waiver, then they're taking that risk. I do not see why we should be imposing this significant requirement on people renting the Gold Room.
Thank you. Ms. Bond?
It's good evening. Just wanted to say that, but I don't know if you, Councilman Herring, I don't know if you had a chance to look through the rules and regulations. But it did state, basically that the client did have a second option where if they wanted to bring in food, let's just say like a Sardi's, then they will have to, sign the waiver, one, but also provide us with a COI for the $1 million, and that's for liability purposes. Anything goes wrong, then they're held responsible and they're liable for anything that's going on with the food and anything like that. So you just want to look at the rules and regulations because it does give them that second option. Not to they don't have to utilize the caterer. However, they get that second option is in reference to bringing in like a Sardi's, not home cooked foods, but like another source of catering.
Okay, well,
Hey, Ms.
that
Bond,
brings, go ahead.
one second, Councilman Herring, I just want to clarify one thing, Ms. Bond, because I know we talked about this, because we say COI of $1 million. Could you tell us how much that certificate will cost?
So I went in, I filled one out. Of course, it has a lot of questions, so I couldn't actually jot it down. But it came up to like $100.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Councilman Herring, you're up.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, Ms. Bond, because that's another issue I have. It shouldn't matter where they bring the food in from. If they're signing a liability waiver saying that they're not going to hold the city responsible, then the city is not going to be held responsible. Whether you bring it in from Sardi's or wherever, because if you bring it in from Sardi's, they're going to, and somebody gets sick, you know it came from Sardi's, so you can sue them. They got the liability on their part if somebody got sick off of it. And again, you don't even know if they got sick off of that at Sardi's. Somebody could have just got sick off of something else. Again, I just think that we're making it difficult for people to rent this hall. I think that if people want to bring in home cooked food, especially like with a repast where a lot of people bring in food from home, it shouldn't be our concern if they're signing a waiver. And again, like I said, the hall has been here for 60 years, and we're making it difficult for us residents to utilize this hall, making it difficult for people in general. Again, the hall is not making much money, and it's not going to make any more with these restraints put on people because, again, they're going to pay for the room, then they got to go get $1 million policy. $1 million policy for what? If we're not being held liable, and they sign a waiver saying we haven't been held liable, and they've been signing that waiver that we weren't being held liable for almost 60 years. Well, no, I'm gonna say, I know over 20 years, because when I came in office, we actually had to redo the Gold Room contract to add that liability waiver in there. I don't see what difference does it make who brings what in here, especially since the county does it every day of the week when they rent their rooms, and from my understanding, they have you sign a waiver and you can bring in what you want. Because again, they're not providing the food, and they're not cooking. You're not cooking on the premises. So I just think we're gonna end up killing ourselves when it comes down to that. And again, I think it makes it very difficult for people to want to rent the hall. Especially, it's not a Mons Crossrooms, it's not a PG County ballroom. It doesn't give you the amenities that those places give. We do no catering, and whoever brings, you can get sick from anything that you bring in, no matter what. But again, and if somebody gets sick off of Sardi's, they're going to sue the city. So my thing is this: have them sign a liability waiver and be done with it, so that you can bring something in there, and people can, the room can be more flexible when it comes down to usage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Herring. Councilwoman Jones.
Thank you, Council President. Once again, most caterers, not most, all caterers know that they have to have that liability insurance, and they carry it. They'll show you their insurance and their food handlers licenses and all those papers when they come to your facility, because they know that in order to do business in Prince George's County, that they have to have that liability insurance. Once again, I would ask for someone that may have this information, and I'm sure somebody does, is the stipulations. What was it that brought the Gold Room to an enterprise entity? Because I found one sheet of paper from 2005 that called it an event hall. So, and I would also ask that the council invite the health department, Deborah, I can't think of her last name right now, and I don't have her paper in front of me, but her name is Deborah, whatever, and invite her to the city and let her explain to us why that the county requires for events halls, whether they're little small events halls like the Gold Room, or whether they're like the Prince George's County Ballroom or Newton's White Mansion or Camelot. They want want folks to have catering licenses. They want the insurance. They want the food handler's license because of the outbreak that they had at Prince George's Ballroom with infectious outbreak with food. So I would really encourage the council to invite these people to do a presentation and let us know so that we'll have good information on why these things are required. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. Vice President Ferguson?
Yes, on the subject of gratis for one event for elected officials, I agree with Councilman Herring. I didn't realize, I know that we spoke about having gratis for any type of meetings that were, public meetings or meetings that was beneficial for the city, but personal events, I think clearly, unless I'm mistaken, there's an ethics violation because it's really strict. Because I know you just can't. That's a large amount. Some I think it's somewhere it's written you can't even take $25, from an employee or different things like that. So I don't. While it sounds good, I don't agree with gratis for individual personal event for an elected official. Now, the same discount that other citizens have, whether it's 30% or 20%, whatever it is, we can get that. And then, of course, again, gratis for meetings or different types of events that would benefit or beneficial for the citizens. As far as the license, I'm not understanding why, if someone signs a waiver, then why they have to go to the extent of why they can't. I can understand, but what Ms. Bunn is saying, like outside getting purchasing food from establishment that already has licenses, like whether it's Silver Diner or whatever. But there are many times repasts and things like that, people experience deaths and things like that. You're going to have people that are going to make food, and they're going to for the benefits of the family. And so I just don't see, if they do a waiver and they are going to be responsible, and the waiver is written to the point where it clearly exempts the city from any suits or damages, then I don't see why they have to go to the extent of having a license. And as Ms. Councilwoman Jones said, at this point, unless we can find something in writing that it says it's a violation, county, state, federal, or all of the above, then I don't see how we can just come in and just knock that out. Because just historically, too, people have done that. But I think that we could probably get something in writing, a document that would really cover everything to the point where there's no loopholes that would cause the city to be liable for any child getting sick or things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Ferguson. So I'll let Councilman Fareed go first, and I'll go last. Councilman Fareed.
Yes, I wanted to speak on the gratis point for the council members. I think that came up as a point of conversation, and we probably can just modify it a bit if I was trying to pull it up. But in there, there's a section for ex or, you know, former council members where it says they can use it for one time for a repass. So if anything, we should be consistent and at least allow that the current council members should be able to use it for the same purposes. It kind of wouldn't make sense to say that only ex-council members can use it for gratis for a repass, but then current council members couldn't. If the concern is if the concern is that it's about the money point, then that could potentially apply to a repass as well. So how do we then distinguish between, you know, the cost that is being an in-kind cost donated to the elected official, whether it's a current one or an ex one, if we allowed repass? So I think that's where it was coming from, to say that it was the current council members could use the room. We just weren't specifying the purpose for which it could be used.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. To address that piece first, I personally don't think it's an ethics issue. We can look into it, but there'll be nothing differentiating between, like Council woman Fareed said, between a repass or anything else, and even a 20 or 30% discount under the guise of it being a gift would still be over a $25 threshold. The way I understood it, that it was it would be one of the things. I mean, council members do not get paid, but there's a stipend, and that's nothing unethical about the stipend, because there's things that we just have to do as council members. But certainly it will be tracked. And who knows? It could be. I get what Councilman Herring said. It's valued at $1,200, but I do think that if a council member elected to use that one option per year, then that would be a taxable event for tax purposes. But I don't think it would fall under the unethical guidelines. But again, we could look into it. The second piece is we can dig further into the COI and things like that. I just want all council members to know that I hear everybody's point and I respect everybody's opinion, and I'm just stating mine. As it relates to the gold room, I know that we kind of steer the direction of just the overall. Let's consider us like the board of the boardroom, and then you have Ms. Habita, who is let's say the managing director, and you have Ms. Bunn, who is the coordinator and I believe has a vision for what that space can be and have expertise in that area, in that field, more than what I have. And I would just like to see us, see where this can go with the vision that Ms. Bunn and her staff has laid out for the city. Again, they're the professionals. They've been in there. They've dug through everything, and they have a vision. And what if we just step back and let them work? What would be the harm from it? I heard a comment earlier that the GoPro's not making a lot of money. Well, then we have nothing to lose. We have nothing to lose from letting Ms. Bunn carry out her vision for the Gold Room. That's not to say that we completely abdicate our responsibility for having common sense structure or anything like that. But, like Ms. Jones said, Councilman Jones said, let's see what the health department says about having COIs. If the COI is just covering us and make sure the individual is covered too, well, then $100 cost to get $1 million insurance is the cost of doing business. It's the cost of renting a hall, whether you want to call it an event hall or, I don't know, whatever would come from it being just used as a community I guess, room. But in my opinion, I think that, let the cook, so to speak, and see what can come of the Gold Room. Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate your perspective, Council President. But the one thing that's different about us and really like truly running a business is that we still are elected officials and we still do represent the interests of the city. And my particular perspective as it relates to this catering piece is how prohibitive it makes it for the residents of this city to be able to rent that space, to use it for, normal, typical purposes. And I think creating that burden for them is just an unnecessary thing for us to do when we're talking about having them sign a waiver instead. We do not get paid for the caterer, nor do we get paid for the insurance. So there really is no impact to us on requiring them to have a caterer, requiring them to have a caterer come in, or for them to bring their own food. It'd be different if we were having the caterer, like if there was a caterer on premises that we were requiring them to use, but we're not. The caterer is offsite. We have no involvement in that transaction other than ensuring that they actually have the paperwork that's required. So I do think that as we look to make sure that this is, while an enterprise operation is still primarily, should be targeted towards our citizens and not putting that burden on them, I think is important for us to make sure we're representing their interests in that way.
Thank you. Councilman Fareed.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir. Councilman Herring.
let me say this. I've been on this council 20 years and I watched that Gold Room at one time bring in $160,000 a year from events, as is, with the rules in place that we had before and with no issues. And everybody keep on talking about making money. Yeah, we got to make money, but also as a council, we got to do what's in the best interest of the city, because that money that comes in from there is general fund revenue, right? What we have to lose now is that the city of Glenarden, the citizens of Glenarden, is footing the operations of that room right now. It's running a deficit, which it should not be doing. It's not bringing in much money as it should be doing. We're only at $47,000, I think it is at the moment, and then we're midway through the year. And I think it's already shown a deficit in expenses. We're incurring all of these expenses, and we want to sit here and try to reinvent the wheel every time. My thing is, it's a room. People like it because it's flexible. People like it because of the bright colors. They like the carpet. They like everything that's in there now. I think what we need to do is we need to move forward with trying to get more business up in there, because again, we're sitting there trying to make that room something it isn't. And like I said, being in this council 20 years, watching the Gold Room, we renovated the Gold Room twice, and the only problem we had was when the roof started leaking and the roof leaked in and we had to shut it down for the longest time, and that drove business away. Then we had COVID, that drove business away. So now we're trying to get back to where we were. We haven't even gotten back to normal yet in the Gold Room. And we're already talking about spending thousands and thousands of dollars on remodeling and painting and all of this other stuff, and putting prohibitive restrictions in place to make us think we're more than what we are, when all people want to do is just rent a room, have a nice wedding, have a nice birthday, have a nice celebration without having to break the bank. Again, you're not going to make any more money painting and all of that stuff. You got to get people back in the place, and the people are coming back slowly. But again, you're not going, I mean, I just don't see it as being as a major issue as big as it's being made out to be. I mean, again, it's the Gold Room. Do some great advertising, get people up in there, and once you get it going, then you look at that, and I'm gonna talk about the renovation later when we get to it. But again, I've seen this place really thrive before, and right now it's not. And right now, the citizens again are footing the bill for the Gold Room, because again, there's not enough index in the account to pay these salaries, and there's no transfers back and forth between the two to give us back the money that we're paying for salaries in the Gold Room. my thing is get the people back up in there, get people using the room again, and stop trying to put things in place that's going to keep people from wanting to use the room. Because again, I've seen it over and over again through all the parks and recreations buildings. They don't have these restrictions, and that's what really drives me crazy when somebody keep on talking about get the county, get the health department, get the health department. The county sat there and had an event, like I said, on Saturday at Glenarden Community Center. There wasn't no caterer over there. There was no license over there. They were cutting watermelon right there on the floor. They had pizza. They had fried chicken. You don't know where that came from. But then again, they also signed a waiver too, saying that then they're going to hold the venue responsible. And that's how you get people in there. No one's going to go through all of that and have to pay for a caterer also, and definitely not doing a repass when people mourning the most. Okay, so I got to go here, get a caterer. I just buried somebody. Now I got to go get a caterer. I got to get a COI. I got to get all of this stuff just to bury somebody. What should be somebody buried in a week, by the time you get the caterer and everything, it'd be 2 weeks. I don't think there's any compassion in that. So, I just think that we need to trying to get business up in here and stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and what PG County Ballroom is doing and Martin Cross Rooms are doing. That we're not them. Everybody wants to be them, but we're not. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Herring. And let's say we concede to the COI, right? And, people don't have to fill it out, because I understand the burden on that you guys are talking about. Then I think it comes down to, what are we going to have? Are we going to have a community room, or is it going to be an enterprise, self-sustaining enterprise? My concern is that we are not going to learn from well-documented past, right? There's a book called From Good to Great, where Jim Collins is analyzing what companies make the leap from good to great. And I say that because we're talking about enterprise. And the ones that were able to adapt with the changing of times were able to go to that level of greatness and still be in business today. Those companies that weren't able to adjust to the times, I mean, things change. From 3 years ago, things are not the same. From 10 years ago, things are definitely not the same. And so those businesses who are able to adapt and adjust to market and flow with the change survive, and those who don't, and they go bankrupt. And in our case, the citizens, if we choose that route, will continue to foot the bill. But I think the objective is to implement some bold ideas that doesn't necessarily take us off track of what the purpose is of the Gold Room, but really generate interest in revenue for the Gold Room that then gets into the bottom line, comes into the city and actually benefits the citizens. Who knows? The idea that I have is that it generates enough revenue. We have money in surplus, and that could benefit to, using that money to give back into the community, as opposed to right now where we're just, we are footing the bill. The citizens are footing the bill. So I think the goal is for citizens not to foot the bill. We just have to find out what's the right path to get there. So with that being said, if there are no more comments, I think the three things were we'll look into the $1,200 gratis. We'll look into that with the attorney and see if there's any ethical violations there. We'll look into the COI to see if there's any wiggle room. Do we want to require it, or do we not want to require it? And I cannot remember the third.
Sorry, Council President, just point of clarification. What are we looking into regarding the COI? Because that sounds like it's just an opinion from the council of what we want to do or not want to do.
Well, I don't know. So let me ask Ms. Bunn, is that a state requirement, Prince George's County Health Department requirement, or is that just up to us, the council?
That's up to us, basically, just
Okay.
as a backup for if anything was to happen with the actual venue itself.
Okay, thank you. So I misunderstood the health county health department comment. All right, so then is
I'm sorry, Council President, but from the count, like I said, I would recommend that Ms. Bunn reach out to the director of the Prince George's County Health Department, because I was told, and from the director and the one of the inspectors, that the venue has to follow the Prince George's County guidelines, and which are the state guidelines, the COBRA laws that have been issued by the state for Prince George's County to follow, and that's how they set it up. So I would respectfully ask that Ms. Bunn reach out to the director and get some clarification on the catering issue, and then bring it back to the council.
okay. Well, Ms. Bunn, if you could do that,
Let them
that'd be
do a
great.
presentation to the council.
We have 2 weeks before this legislation is passed. So if there is actual overarching rule that the city has to abide by, we'll be able to find that out.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Bunn, I saw your hand go up and down. Did you have something to say?
No, I'll work on that. That's no problem. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. Next up is the rules and regulations relating to the community center at Woodmore Town Center. Any questions related to that,
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring?
Yeah, again, this was one I wasn't at. Again, this one is doing the same thing. This is just a daggone community room. That's what we had it as. And what I'm really getting tired of is people trying to change what the intent of that room was when they weren't here when it was established. Now, to sit there and say the type of events that can be held in that room is just meetings, seminars, and workshops only doesn't fly. Because that was not the intent of that room. It was a community room where people can have events there, small events there, where they don't have to rent the gold room. And it was a give back to the citizens from the developers. No, not give back. It was required to be given to the city of Glenarden by the developers in the DSP that was filed. And so continually letting Lynn Snyder tell us what we can and cannot do with that room is really starting to get on my nerves. Because again, she cannot tell us what to do with that room. We went through this when I was on the council when we had Sue Ellen Ferguson there. We went back and forth on what a community room constitutes, and we said what we were going to use it for. And because they want to change up how we want to use it, everybody's bowing down and is like terrified of this woman. This woman has nothing to do. This room was given to us. She can't take it from us. It was given to us in the DSP that was passed by the county planning board. So to sit there and say that you can only have meetings, seminars, and workshops, nah, that don't fly. Because again, I know a lot of people that like to have a small event, and maybe we want to have a little baby shower or something like that, and that's the room that you can do it, that you should be able to do it in. Music, again, with this music thing, yeah, I know you can't have no band or nothing in there, but you can have music. And we went around on that too. And because Lynn Snyder said you can't have music, everybody's running scared. And I just don't, why is everybody terrified of this woman when she has absolutely no authority over that room when it comes to what we could do it? Because we've already went around on this. And it's really getting frustrating because again, that's another room that was given back to the community that we're not trying to make money off of, but we want to have a place where the citizens can go to have an event if they want to have a small event. That was a give back from the developers for all the hard work that we did in creating Woodmore Town Center. And here we got all of these rules in place, know this, know that. And I don't understand why we even are offering, which I don't understand. Why are we offering add-ons? I don't get that. I don't understand why we will even offer add-ons in that room. All we should be giving them people in that room is tables and chairs. That's it. Because that's what the room is meant for. Anything else that they want, they can bring themselves. But for us to sit there and give them add-on, it's almost like we're renting the room out. And we're not renting the room. The room is supposed to be used as a community room and not a rental space. And we're not supposed to be making any money off of the room. So I'm just like, this room, I mean, they're moving these things into what they should not be. Again, I was on the council when we negotiated the contract with Peachy Ross at that time. And they had it put in the DSP that we would get a community room. We said what we were going to use it for. We went back and forth with their attorney and told them what we were going to use it for, and we haven't had any problems with it yet. But now all of a sudden, every time there's a regime change, Lynn Snyder comes and starts squawking, and everybody goes running crazy about, oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, we can't do this. It's really getting frustrating, because at some point we got to stand on our own, stand up and stand strong, and stop letting people chase us down and tell us what we can and cannot do with something that's ours. I mean, it really is frustrating, because that's for the people. That room is specifically for the people in Glenarden. That's why we try to give it to them for free. And now we're going to put all of these requirements in here again, and the same thing with catering. No outside food. This whole catering thing again. That's a basic room that doesn't even have a stove in it. So I'm not understanding this whole thing with this. And again, they can sign a liability waiver. Again, it's like any other room in Prince George's County that the county rents out, that Park and Recs rent out, where people have events and people bring in food. And you're not going to sit there and tell me and y'all keep on talking about the health department. I want to know what they're telling the health department, because again, if you're going to go tell the health department, well, we got a kitchen and you can cook in the kitchen, and they're going to be like, oh, you're cooking in the kitchen, so you're doing catering. So then you're going to get a different opinion than if you say, we just rent a room, but we don't use the kitchen. All they do is put stuff in there and warm. See, and that's what I'm saying. People going down to the health department and telling them the story that they want them to tell them, that they want to tell them, so they can get the answer that they want to get from them. But again, this community room is for the people. We negotiated it for the people. We got it for the people. And now here we go, throwing all of these rules and regulations in place when all people want to do is just have like a baby shower, a little party for about 100 people and be done, and not have to spend $1,200. I mean, at what point are we going to stop trying to gouge the citizens and give them back what they entitled to? This is specifically for them. And thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Councilman Herring. I do believe there were some guidelines related to the use, but I'll let Ms. Bunn comment on that. Ms. Bunn?
Yes, so when you touched on Councilman Herring, that it's a room to not make money. I think that's part of the issue there, because when it comes to having, when you say 100 people for a baby shower, that's when we come into a situation where there's more damages or overtime, where I've seen it in my staff seen where there was damages done. And with the amount of money that we're receiving for just for $50 for damages, it's not covering anything. None of that. It's not covering overtime when a client stays over their time frame, or the damages that they're creating in the actual room. So those were some of the things when and I took it into consideration. However, I do have to think about my staff, and I also have to think about Glenarden as a whole, and making sure that we're making the right decisions when it comes to the right events in that space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman,
follow up on that?
Ms. Jones, do you mind if he follows up on that, since this relates to his comment? Councilman Herring?
Yes, let me just say this. It isn't, Ms. Bond, no disrespect, but it isn't your place to say what happens in that room. The room was given to the city of Glenarden, and the city of Glenarden said that they can have certain events. I was there when we wrote up the proposal. I was there when they did with the contract that we had, where we rented for $1. So it's for us to say what goes on in that room. No disrespect, not you, because that's what happened. That's what we told them originally when we rented the rooms, that the council said, these are rules that we're going to set down, and these are the rules that we said you can have these events in this room. And I'm saying, I'm not disagreeing with that the price need to go up $50. I'm saying, you want to take the price up. I see you took the price up. I haven't even gotten to that yet. I don't have no problem. You want to take it up to 200, fine. I know there's damage in there. There's things that need to be done, or take it up to 100 or whatever it's taken up to. And you want to have a $200 security deposit, fine. But again, restricting it to certain events that you feel should only be held in there, no, that don't fly, because that's not the original intent of that room when we originally got it. And again, like I said, I've been on the council 20 years. I was there in 2008 when we negotiated all of this. I was there when we signed off on this contract with this in this agreement with them, and I know exactly what was said and how we were going to use it. And I was there when we got the attorney involved with their attorney to tell them how we were going to use it, and they backed off because they knew we were completely right. So again, and while I understand you worrying about your staff, I have to worry about the citizens in Glenarden and what they were promised when the development was built, and what we intended to use that room for when we accepted it, and why we negotiated to get that space from them as a give back to the city of Glenarden and the citizens of Glenarden. So again, I'm just trying to say that, again, the citizens, it's another benefit of living in the city of Glenarden, that there's a community room over there that you can utilize for $100 or $200 or whatever you're trying to whatever usage fee you're trying to do. But again, this catering thing, there's not even, like I said, there's not even a kitchen over there. And people should be able to bring in whatever they want to bring into that room, like they do in every other building in Prince George's County, and that's under park and recreation. They're no different than anybody else, and they're under the county. They are the county. All right, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Herring. Councilwoman Jones.
Okay, so yeah, Parks and Recreations is a rec center. It's different. So my thing concerning the Woodmore Community Center, it's changed hands, owners, Petrie, Mr. Duffy, and now Urban Edge. I would, as I said with the health department, I would sit down and call the people together. Let's go to the root of the problem and find out from Urban Edge through Miss Lynn, and find out what requirements. We have a set of requirements that we received from the DSP, and what kind of requirements are you trying to implement on us to find out where the problem is, so that Miss Bunn can make good decisions concerning that room as far as what we can do and what we can't do. There are some guidelines as to what we can and what we can't. I'm sure we just can't do anything. So we need to find out from Urban Edge, and we need to find out from Miss Lynn, who is the property manager, what she's been told. If we have to bring in attorneys to bring in our attorney to ask them to come and sit down to a meeting to find out what the issue is, so that we can make good decisions concerning how the room is supposed to be used and for what venues it can be used for. Thank you.
Mr. President, may I?
Yes.
Final
comment to you, Councilman.
Okay, let me just say this again. Lynn Snyder does not run us. And unfortunately, some council members are afraid of her, and they sit there and run and call Miss Lynn, or better, Missy Ann, or whatever you want to call her. They bow down to her. I'm not bowing down to her. And I've told her that to her face. I've told her that in an email. She's not going to dictate to us what we're going to do with that room. But she wants council members like the council member that just spoke, because they sit down and bow down to her and give her what she wants. We already went back and forth with their lawyers. We already went back and forth with them. We already went back and forth with their lawyers on this. And they know we're right, and that's why they haven't come back with a lawyer again. But they hoping they can get enough council members scared, like the council member that just spoke, that's going to sit there and turn it over. And let me just say this. The DSP was signed in perpetuity. Those rules and regulations transfer with owners. Whoever takes that property have to abide by that DSP, if you know anything about detailed site plans and how we negotiated that contract. So no matter who owns the land, we'll always have that piece of property until they have that space until it is vacant. That's the way it is. And we negotiated that and locked in all of that, so they could not pull it from us if the land was sold. But then again, when you don't do your time, take your time to read, and you want to sit there and get Miss Lynn involved, then this is what you get. But you know what? I'm the type of person I'm going to stand up to them. I'm not afraid of them. Some people are. They want Miss Lynn to come and just bow down to it. I'm not bowing down to Miss Lynn. Sorry, it doesn't work like that. You know, we are African Americans. This is Black History Month. Show your pride. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just remind council members that when other members are speaking, please, they have the floor, do not chime in. And if there cannot be a subtle jab even at each other, everyone's opinion is respected. Everyone has their own comments, and that's fine. People are entitled to that. We don't always have to agree, but we do want to make sure that we're operating with respect and professionalism. So I'll just remind members of that. If we can just briefly, Councilwoman Fareed and Councilman Jones, so we can move on, that'll be great. Councilwoman Fareed?
Yes, thank you, Council President. I do want to remind the council that at the beginning of our terms, I did meet with the folks over at Woodmore Town Center for their community room. And they were not able to produce anything that explicitly detailed how that room was supposed to be used. So I think I agree with Councilman Herring that in the absence of there being something prescriptive and specific about how that space can be used, we do have the latitude to determine how we're going to utilize that space. I believe it was the only thing that the agreement said was that it was to be a community room for the benefit of the community.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Jones?
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. That is the only thing that I was asking for. It's not, I've only met I call her Miss Lynn because I don't know her last name. And I'm saying being respectful on this Zoom meeting by saying Miss Lynn. Miss Lynn, I've only met her a couple of times at the Christmas parties for the children. So when we're doing Christmas parties for children, I don't try to do business. We're there to help take care of the children. So that's all I'm asking for, because most of the time, like I said, there's a new management, new owners in place. Have them come to the table and bring whatever documentation that they have to say how we can use the room or how we can't use the room. If they don't have any, then we can use the room as said. But when you bring people together and try to have a consensus so Ms. Bunn can effectively do her job so that we can present this room to citizens as to what its use is for and how it should be used, I think that those opportunities should be taken care of. It has nothing to do with anybody being bullied or being she's got control over us or anybody bowing down to anyone. It's having compassion and listening to the other side so that we all understand what's going on. When you don't understand, it brings confusion. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution to declare a code enforcement vehicle as surplus. Are there any questions related to this piece of legislation? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next one. A resolution to purchase a vehicle for the code department. Are there any questions on this piece of legislation?
Yes, this is budgeted, right?
Yes.
Councilman Henry? Yes, this is budgeted.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Next up is a resolution to award the global positioning system to AT&T Fleet Management Services. Any questions or comments on this piece of legislation? All right, I will bring it up since there are comments. 1 second. Share it, and we'll go with Councilwoman Jones first.
Thank you, Council President. I only have one question. There was an issue on the last vendor that they were leaning towards, and it was concerning the police cars and the warranties. Will we still have this same issue with police cars and these devices affecting the warranties on the police cars?
I'll respond to that, Council Member Jones. We have an AT&T representative with us here tonight. And of course, Mr. Simpson has been working with the AT&T representative and doing the research and the reference checks on Prince George's County and Fairfax County. So if Charles, you want to introduce the rep from AT&T?
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, we have Corcoran. She's available along with a colleague. I believe they can provide a brief presentation as well as answer any questions you may have. The primary decision with AT&T was backed by the relationship that the county has with them as a vendor, and particularly DPW as well as the police department. And I can turn it over to any questions.
Yeah, 1 second. So we don't have time for a presentation.
Okay.
I wish I'd have known beforehand, we would have scheduled that, but all we have time now for are just questions that council members have related to that. And with that, I think Ms. Jones, Councilwoman Jones had a question as it relates to the warranty on the police vehicles.
Mr. Curtis.
Yes.
I think the AT&T representative is going to answer that question. That's why I wanted them to be introduced.
Okay. And their names?
Kelsey Corcoran and a colleague. I'm sorry, I can't determine who, but Kelsey Corcoran is here with us.
It looks like Ms. Corcoran, and I see Ms. Sartori has so
Yes.
I'll turn it over to
Good evening, yes, Council. My name's Kelsey Corcoran, and I have my teammate Anthony Sartori, who's going to be able to answer some more specific questions, including the warranty question. So, Anthony, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address the questions. The one question that I did hear is, will this void the warranty of the police vehicles? And the answer is no. We work with manufacturers directly, specifically Ford, GM, and Dodge or Stellantis. And we have working relationships with them and understanding that this does not interfere with the warranty of the vehicle. Our units will only, if they connect and they sense any other items that are communicating, they go into what they call a listen only mode. They do not interfere with any other device. They only gather information. When the other device stops communicating, then we transfer the information over the system.
Okay, so what they were concerned about is when they take the vehicles in for maintenance, the maintenance folks at where they take them to, the county has informed them that by having the device on the vehicle, it would interfere with the warranty. That was the concern.
It does not, because we have a lot of police agencies that we currently service now, and there's very few that have any issues with them. We have less than 1% of a failure rate on any of these items. And if there's issues with the vehicles, specifically like the Ford, some of the Ford vehicles, we've worked with the manufacturer and we would narrow it down to make sure that it was not our items or our units that were voiding the warranty or causing any of the issues. We currently work with Prince George County, and they have a well-working relationship, including the police department, and it works very well for them.
All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, thank you. I'm just curious as to how these devices are installed on the car.
Sure. So the devices are installed through the onboard diagnostics port. So that port is where your normal mechanic would plug in his tools to diagnose any problems. It's underneath the driver's steering wheel, underneath the dashboard. And what we do, we have a harness that plugs into the OBD2 port or the onboard diagnostics port with a long, we'll say extra long piece of a harness that we plug our unit into, and it's zip tied underneath the dashboard. So it appears that it's not even there once it's installed properly. So in short, just with a harness, it's installed.
Thank you. And so it can't be like, it's not portable, right? It can't just be moved from one car to another.
It is portable, but it's not. Once it's installed, it would take some effort to deinstall it and move it to another vehicle. And if someone wanted to tamper with it, it's not that easy.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Jones said a new hand or old hand?
Yeah, that's a new hand, but Councilwoman Fareed asked my question. My concern was any of the devices being tampered with, and it was effectively answered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions from council members as it relates to this piece of legislation?
Yes, President.
Councilman Herring.
Yeah, he wasn't getting out that easy. No, but I just wanted to know, question, like he said, it can't be tampered with, but can you tell if it was tampered with?
You can. We have what we call a watchdog report that comes up on the dashboard of our application.
Okay, great. All right, thanks.
And if I may for a moment just share my screen, I'll show a picture of what the items look like.
Sure.
Okay, so here is our unit on the top right-hand corner. It shows you how easy it is to plug in. But over here are our harnesses where we would plug in and be able to put it underneath the dashboard and zip tie it out of the way. Okay.
Okay. Well, Kelsey and Anthony, thank you very much for your time and joining our call. If I had known you were going to be on a call, I would probably put you first so you didn't have to endure all the other pieces of legislation you had to go through. But I appreciate you taking the time.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you as well.
Okay. Next up is a resolution to authorize the use of the ARPA fund for the renovation of the Gold Room. Are there any questions related to this piece of legislation? Yep,
yes.
I knew it. Councilman.
Okay, so with this, I guess can we use that money to renovate that room? Now, I do know a calculation was done earlier to move like $43,000 from the ARPA funds based on some type of calculation on what we lost during COVID, and that money should have been actually transferred over to the Gold Room checking account. So can we use this money? I think we've already done a calculation that shows what the Gold Room lost, and I think that was only $43,000. So that's what we should be using to do any renovations, plus whatever's in the Gold Room checking account. So have we reached out to see if we can actually do that?
Yes, we can, because we logged this, the whole lump sum as revenue loss. And by us doing that, that enabled us to be able to use it for different things in the city.
But we did do that, but we also did a calculation showing what as a business, what the Gold Room lost. And
Yeah,
the Gold Room is technically not a government, it's a business. It's supposed to be, it has a separate budget and it makes its own money and it generates its own funds. So you're saying the general funds that we said we were going to use are basically for government operations and city operations. It seems like if we're going to do this, then it needs to be a loan to the Gold Room and they need to pay it back to the citizens, because again, that's ARPA money that the citizens, that will go toward the citizens for another project. versus the gold room. I just think we need to look at that carefully and see, because again, a calculation was done. It was put in our budget. And if they look at that and say, well, you said the gold room only lost this much on COVID, and you reclaimed that money, and you're taking more ARPA money and putting it back into the gold room, which is an enterprise zone or business, then you know, we may end up owing some money back. I just think we need to be very careful with this, you know, and ensure that we can, because again, a calculation was done and it was officially put in the budget that the loss that we were, the money that we were recouping from the ARPA funds for the loss of revenue during COVID in the gold room. So I just think it's something we need to be very careful with, because again, they say you will have to pay it back if you don't use it correctly. And that's just my concern. So.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, Council President, thank you. You addressed part of what I was going to say. The treatment that we took, the option that we took allows us to use it. And that's the same reason why, as an example, when we provided assistance to businesses in the area or residents in the area, we didn't have them, they didn't need to prove their losses, you know, in order to say, I lost this much. We don't know if they lost anything, you know, in terms of COVID, or if it exceeded the amount that was given to them in a grant. We are allowed to use that money. And because the Gold Room is an enterprise operation for the city, renovating that Gold Room will allow us to boost our sales, so to speak, and reach more renters, so that we can begin to put that enterprise fund into operations and begin to earn revenue and not have to transfer money from the city's operating funds going forward. And just a reminder that those ARPA funds do need to be used this year, and there is quite a significant amount of money left from those ARPA funds, and so we need to have them earmarked relatively soon, so that we can get the projects underway, so that they're completed before the end of the year, or we will lose the rest of that money.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. Any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring.
Yes, who's in charge of our don't we have somebody in charge of our ARPA funds? Did we talk to that person?
We can talk to Mr. Himmler about this. I haven't talked to him, no, about
Yeah,
this.
just talk to, I just want to be comfortable that we're not going to get stuck with something.
Sure. We'll do it.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All right, next up is a resolution to authorize the purchase of computers from Global Public Safety. Any questions related to this piece of legislation? All right, next up is a resolution to appoint steering committee members for the Glenarden Farmers Market. Any comments on this piece of legislation?
Yes, Mr. President.
Councilman Herring.
Those need to be separate resolutions for the committee members. And the council members don't need resolutions because we're actually creating a committee. But the three people who are being brought on to be on a committee, we need a separate resolution for those, because again, somebody might not want to vote for all three of them. You know, now I might not want to vote for Donna Herring.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, right now you force people to vote for all of them, but all three of them, and that's not, you know, as an elected official, I should have the right to decide who I want to vote for and who I don't want to vote for.
I don't have a problem separating them. I'll make 3 resolutions for each of. So the council, we don't need ones for the council members? Okay.
No, because you're creating a committee.
So I will just copy paste the same resolution for each of the ward representatives.
Yeah.
Good.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments related to this legislation? Excuse me. Hearing none, we'll move on. The final one is a resolution for establishing the selection committee for the IMCC ETFs. Are there any questions or comments related to this? Okay. Okay. All right. Hearing none, we will move on. For the sake of time, because we still have to get to topics of discussion, and also understanding that most questions for the administrative reports come during a regular session. Are there any objections to us skipping this section and just keeping it with the regular session and moving on to topics of discussion?
I did have some questions for the city manager.
Okay, so are you comfortable with addressing those questions at the regular session, or do you want to do
I
it
can
now?
wait to the regular session. Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, no, one question I did want to ask was
okay.
it was concerning the bus. What's going on with the bus? Because I know we were at one point I think before she came in, the city was discussing getting a new bus, a bus that the city would own, and using the ARPA funds possibly for that, because the bus we have now belongs to the county. And I know that at one point I remember Ms. Hobbit saying that we were going to wait to and get a grant, and the grant required us to have a diesel bus. And at this time, the city doesn't have a diesel bus, nor does the county to trade in. So can we just go ahead and use ARPA money to purchase a bus? And maybe she can ask Mr. Himmler if that's one of the items that we can use ARPA money for. Because if we don't have a diesel bus, we can't wait, until the city itself I don't see them ever acquiring a diesel bus to use a grant. So, and if the county doesn't have any by now, I'm sure they're not going to have any coming up. So, where are we with the bus?
We've been approached by the county fleet. Mr. Curtis, I'm assuming it's okay for me to jump in?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, we've been approached by the county fleet management about the propane bus, if we wanted to have them turn it over to us for $1, kind of a deal. And because it is propane, and we've had some difficulties with, the fuel, putting fuel in it in the past. I'm a little leery about that, but Mr. Bazemore is going to be communicating with the fleet management folks about that, and we may have a recommendation for you on whether it makes sense to keep the existing bus for $1 or buy a brand new bus.
If we keep
any feedback anybody on council would like to make would sure entertain.
So if we keep the existing bus and buy it for $1, then we'll be responsible for all the maintenance, and then trying to find a part, which the bus was down for almost 4 weeks because they couldn't find a part to the propane gas cap.
Yeah.
So and the bus is something that is utilized by the seniors in the community. I don't think I would want to see it down again for another 4 to 6 weeks waiting on a part. And if we can purchase a bus as a city from a vendor and have the bus what's used now, whether it's electric or whether it's gas, I think that might be a better move in order to keep the bus running for the seniors in the community.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh,
Okay.
I'm sorry, for clarity's sake, so we're going to ask Mr. Himmler if we can use ARPA money to buy a bus?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Council
Okay.
President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jones. All right, so have 6 topics of discussion, but I think we've covered some of these. Are there, we touched on the Gold Room discount and gratis. Councilman Fareed, is there anything further that you would like to touch on with this topic of discussion?
Not with those, but I did notice that the charter review items are not listed. So if we could do those.
Okay. Yeah, I think they were on the original one. I don't know what happened with the other one, but if you would like to touch on that, that'll be fine. If there aren't any objections. Okay, Councilman Fareed.
Yeah, sorry, I'm pulling them up, what was sent. So there are a couple of questions that the Charter Review Committee would like to have resolved. I believe we addressed this one question already, but it was asked that we bring it back. The question is, how should the mayor be elected? And so just to give context to the citizens on the call, as we're moving through this charter review process, we have agreed that, or there's been a consensus that we will move forward with a resolution to propose that the mayor will be part of the council. So the council will remain at 7 members. One of those members will be the mayor and will be the chair of the council. The mayor will now have voting rights, which the mayor currently does not have. And again, the mayor will be the chair of these meetings, which currently the mayor is not, is just sort of an attendee at the meeting as opposed to an active participant in the discussions. So we're looking to do that with the with this charter resolution. But the question remains, how is the mayor to be elected? By the citizens as it is today, or by the other 6 council members? So what could happen is that all 7 could run as council members, and then once those 7 are elected, the 7 will decide which of those 7 will serve in the capacity as mayor. That is pretty similar to what we do for, well, not similar, that's exactly what we do today for the council president. The council members, 7 are elected, and then we decide amongst ourselves who's going to be the council president. I believe when we had this discussion, some of the points that were made, and since I'm talking about it, I'm going to put my opinion out there. I do believe the mayor should be elected by the citizens, and the other 6 council members are elected separately, meaning that when voters go to the booth, they know who they are voting on to be the mayor. And so in that way, the voters have a direct say in who will be the mayor of the city. But I know that the desire was to bring this conversation back up. So I wanted to talk about that. Now that's kind of one part of the question. And then there's, other parts to it, because if the mayor is to be elected by the citizens, that means that the mayor is elected at large. So then the question would be, how are the other 6 council members to be distributed? Should they all be at large, or should there be 1 from each ward and then 3 at large, or 2 from each ward? Because essentially there's going to be a mayor and then 6 council members.
Okay. I'll chime in. One, thank you and the rest of the committee for working on updating the charter and getting us to where we need to be. I am on the opposite side of you, Councilwoman Fareed, as it relates to how the mayor is established. I think that every official will be elected, whether it has a title of mayor or council or anything. So we won't be taking any voice away from the citizens, in my opinion. The citizens will get to elect their 7 representatives. And just to lump it in, I would vote to keep it the same way it is now, where there's a representative from each ward and then 4 at large. I would like to see the council continue to come together to say who should basically be the chair of the meetings and be mayor pro temp. The reason for that is because I think that, one, to permanently vote the mayor for 4 years and have that person leave the council 4 years could, pose some issues. And I think that the current structure we have now, where you earn the vote of your team essentially, to be the chairperson each year, will make way for a smoother working relationship with the council. Whereas I mean, if that were the case today, I think it would just be chaos. So my vote would be for citizens to elect 7 representatives for the city, and then among those representatives, those 7 select who should chair the council. So.
Okay, thank you. And there's a part B to the question as well, because if we were to go that route, we should consider who should be eligible for it. Because if we continue our structure as is right now, and we have ward representatives, right? I'm the Ward 3 representative. If the council chose me to be the mayor of the city, then effectively I've only been voted on by 1/3 of the city, but assuming reasonable that it's equal distribution across the city. So now we have a mayor who has only been elected by 1/3 of the citizens, versus if we would go the route where the mayor is elected amongst the 7, I would say that either it's only limited to those council members who were elected at large, or all of the council members be at large if there's a possibility that any of them could be the mayor. I think that while we are changing the structure, I think what we're doing, the mayor role still has some there's still sort of gravitas to that in the mayor representing us across the state. Right now, the council president does not do that, right? That's not the responsibility of the council president. So I do think that we have to consider, as we change this, that role of mayor is not exactly equivalent to the council president. So I would think, stepping back, because I am a ward representative, I would say that I would not be eligible to be elected for mayor. I do think that role should at least be, even if we're not going to specifically vote for that person, that should be someone who was elected by a majority of the citizens.
Good point. Thank you, Councilwoman Fareed. Anyone else want to chime in? Any council members? Councilwoman Jones.
Okay, thank you, Council President. Councilwoman Fareed did bring up a good point at that last statement that she made. That's something that I really need to chew on. But I do believe it should be a ward representative for each ward and the rest at large. And the pro tem mayor really sounds in the direction that I would want to go now with the city, because this is what they're doing across the most of the municipalities now across the county are doing, and not necessarily because that's what they're doing, but in our arena, at least it would give the mayor an opportunity to participate in legislation, and they wouldn't be just like somebody sitting off on the sideline, just going to parties and letting people know that we have a mayor, because well, the mayor there's opportunities for the mayor to speak up for the city, and those opportunities should be fulfilled by the head, whether it's elected by the council or whether it's elected by the people. That's the way I see it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Harris?
Yeah, again, I feel that we need to, if we're going to do a city manager council form of government, we need to do a city manager council form of government. Again, I think that we should vote for 7 council members and pick a mayor from amongst the council members. Again, the mayor's position is going to be ceremonial. The Bowie has the same setup, and they, for instance, you know, their mayor powers are. Let me just read this right quick. It says the mayor's powers. Let's see. The mayor shall be recognized as the head of the city government for all ceremonial purposes by the courts for serving civil processes and by the governor for the purpose of military and emergency law. The mayor shall have other such other powers and perform other duties as prescribed, as may be prescribed by the charter or required by the council. So it's a ceremonial position. The position has absolutely no power whatsoever. It's all ceremonial. And the council is running the city, because that's what we're doing with the city manager council form of government. It doesn't matter who you pick. It doesn't matter how many votes you got. You know, again, that's why I still feel that to get fair representation across the board, it should be 2 for each ward and 1 member at large. That way, everybody would be represented by 3, and all jurisdictions got to work together, because no one's going to have a majority on the council. Right now, again, you got 4 members from Ward 3, and 4 members from Ward 3, 2 members from Ward 2, and 1 from Ward 1. I mean, 2 members from Ward 1 and 1 from Ward 2. Ward 2 isn't being fairly represented, neither is Ward 1. Again, you know, it's been plenty of times, like I said, again, my ward, there's issues over here that's not being addressed. And I don't have the votes to get what I need to get. There's things that need to be done in this ward. I mean, you know, even though people are at large, doesn't mean you know what's going on in the city. People keep on thinking because it's a small city that you can cover all the ground around here. I'm doing Ward 1 and it's a lot to cover, just with me and by myself. But again, that's why they gave 2 back in the day to 2 to Ward 1, 2 to Ward 2, because they were large areas and you had to cover them, and 1 to Ward 3 because it was the smallest. Now that it's grown, I think you need to add another one and give have it at large. And that way everybody's represented by three representatives. All areas of the city have to work together. And I think it'll flow much better, because again, right now, it isn't fair. I mean, there's issues. I can go down issue after issue over in my ward, and I can ask this council, what's happening on Johnson Avenue? And I guarantee you, none of you can tell me. What's happening on Glenarden Parkway, right there between Fisk and Johnson? You know, nobody could tell me. What's happening down at Tyler? What's happening right there at Tyler and Fisk? What's happening along Fisk? You know, it's a lot of things. What's going on down in Hubbard? I'm talking to businesses down on Hubbard. What's going on Hubbard? You know, what's going on right directly here, like I said, again, on Johnson Avenue? What's happening up here on Grant? You know, there's not, I can guarantee you, not one council member here who's at large can tell me exactly what's going on in my ward, because you don't know. And I don't expect you to know. You don't live in the ward, so you're not going to be familiar with everything that's going on in the ward unless somebody call you and tell you about it. Like with the snow, I had a number of calls for snow, in the issues with snow in my ward, and they were addressed, but they called me up. You know, but again, I still feel that every person in the city should be represented by a certain. You have a representative for every so many number of people in your area, and that's why you do the ward system. So if you got 1,000 people, you have 2 representatives for 1,000 people. That's just an example, and that's why the ward system. So that way you can represent each person fairly, and each person can have a fair representative. But again, when it comes down to the city manager council form of government, I think we need to do it. I think we need to just do it and just be done with it, and let the people see how it works. Every other municipality that has this form of government, it works, and they just pick a ceremonial position for the mayor, and the council do their business. You know, if they got, and again, like I've just read for Bowie, it's just very ceremonial. It isn't much that they do. Unless the council, and the person will be a member of the council, decides to give that person and that authority. Again, and you can have a ceremonial mayor and have a president of the council. There's no reason why you can't do that. You know, ceremonial mayor, like I said, again, it's just for three situations, really, unless you give them some other power. And I think that we need to move in that direction. Yeah, there's going to be some people kicking and screaming, but I mean, sometimes you got to show people what works and let them see how it works. It isn't like it's something that's permanent, but I think we need to try something different, because right now, what we have now isn't working. You know, and I don't think you have to worry about who's going to be the mayor. If the council just feels a certain person should be mayor, then let them you know, be mayor. It doesn't matter how many votes you got. It's all ceremonial. So that's my feeling on that. I say, and then, like I said, then the ward representation, I just think right now it's completely unfair because again, like I said, I'm still dealing with issues over in my ward that won't get addressed because legislation was voted down because it wasn't seen, the need for it wasn't seen, but then again, it was voted down by people who don't live over here and don't see what we have to go through. And like I said, again, I don't expect every council member to know because again, everybody lives in different parts of the city. You know, and city is small, but it's big, and you can't be around the whole city all the time. You're not going to be there. You're more familiar with what's going on in your area because you live in that area and you go in and out of that area. And I just think to give people fair representation, this 4 at large thing is just it's not fair. Because I guarantee you, if it flipped, I know it'd be a bunch of squawking. I didn't agree with it before when they had 5 council members on here from Ward 1. I thought that was so unfair to the rest of the city. You know, but it was a lot of work too, though, you know, trying to maintain and cover our whole city, you know, so that's my feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to Vice President Ferguson and then circle back to you, Ms. Jones. Vice President Ferguson.
Okay, I'm addressing the ward at large. I've been at large since 2017. And I have found that, and I live in Ward 1. I found that citizens will contact who they want to contact. I have people that contact me from all wards about situations, questions, you know, about whatever they want to contact me about. Just recently, I had a citizen, long-term citizen, Fifth Avenue had something come up with he has a bus, and so I it had something to do with the code enforcer. So I spoke to him. I told him I'd get back to him, and I did contact the Ward 1 rep, and I did tell him that I had Ward 1, you know, who the Ward 1 rep was, and they were familiar with him, but they called me. I don't feel like an imbalancement of you know, with at large people not knowing everything. I live in Ward 1, and he named some streets that having some issues that I really don't know what's going on. But there's just as many people that call me, whether they're on Glenarden Parkway, Fiskdale, Wood, Eccles, in the apartments, and in Ward 1 that Cork Avenue that I do know. So I really don't think being at large necessarily means that being a Ward 1 rep means that you have to tackle the whole ward, because it's our responsibilities as at large representatives to be available to all 3 wards. And at the same time, I would think that even ward representatives, I'm sure that they may know people in other wards that may call, you know, somebody might call, Mr. Herring that lives in Ward 3 because they know him, and so I find that is what happens. So I personally believe that I think that we should have wards, because I think most people do have wards, opposed to going at large and 7 at large. But I do not believe that there should be 2 representatives in each ward. 1 ward representative and the rest at large. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Councilwoman Jones, and then Councilwoman Reed.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. And you have to also have to take in consideration too that when election time comes up and it determines on the persons that are who's running, if these persons want to run and serve the community, I'm sure everyone knows that you're serving the entire community, not just your ward. And at large folks, as the Vice President said, we serve everybody in the community. We serve all of the wards. I lived in Ward 1 growing up, so I know the number of a number of people that still live there. And just as Council Vice President says, people call who they want to work with. So if there's an issue and they know they can get in touch, like that, most of the time during the day, I'm home. So people call me and with issues and I can get up and go and address them, go and look at what they're talking about and be able to bring back the information to the proper department head, you know, to address the situation. So I think you need to take in consideration if I'm running for, no matter who, how many people run, if 5 people run out of Ward 3 and 5 people win in Ward 3, it's because of that's who the people elected. And you have to take in consideration, a judge told me this. So if they're elected, there's nothing nobody can do about that. That's who the people elected. That's who we have to honor. Well, no matter whether they live in Ward, if all of them come out of Ward 1 or everybody comes out of Ward 2, this is who the people elected when they went to the ballot box. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes, I would just like to point out that the current composition of our council has 2 ward members that live in Ward 1. So I think if the argument is being made that 2 are necessary in order to represent the interests and therefore legislation would be, you know, being proposed by a Ward 1 representative would automatically pass because there are 2 representatives. I don't think that's the case. I think legislation that is put forward that the council as a whole agrees on is a benefit to the city, then that's the information that gets passed. Further, if we went to a 2-2-2 situation with 1 at large, based upon the argument that has been made in terms of, you know, who comes out to vote and the balance, we would be guaranteed to always have 3 council members from Ward 3. That at-large council member will almost be guaranteed to be from Ward 3. So you're going to then have 3 council members who are representing that ward, if it's the assumption that because the person is at large and lives in a particular area, that they're going to focus on that area more. I think the other thing about the ward representation, and I say this as a ward member, when I pass legislation, it generally is for the whole entire city. Community gardens is not just for Ward 3. The farmers market is not just for Ward 3. The intermunicipal and county task force is not just for Ward 3. I think the only thing that I've ever passed that is impacting Ward 3 only is the 7th Street Park. But I know, you know, Councilman Herring has passed legislation, has put forward legislation that impacted Ward 3, right? With the streets over there in Ward 3. So I think how this council actually operates is in the benefit of the entire city, not just, you know, their particular block. So I don't see that, you know, going to all at large would be any sort of unfair distribution. And to the point that Councilwoman Jones was making, people who come out and they vote for who they vote for. If Ward 1 voters are not coming out and voting for Ward 1 candidates, or if there are no candidates from Ward 1 that are running, then that's what we have. I think as a city and just in general, there's a lot of apathy as it relates to government and people wanting to be involved in that. And so I think trying to limit ourselves to only have candidates from specific wards, we're going to be limiting ourselves on who's going to be involved in government. And I don't think that's a good idea, again, when we have so little participation. I think whoever wants to run for the city council and help continue to move the city forward are viable candidates, and whoever wins, you know, whoever can garner the most votes by going across the city. You're going to have to, I know all the at-large candidates, you didn't just campaign in your wards. You know, council president lives at Wilmore Town Center, and he was over in Ward 1, you know, knocking on doors. So the at-large candidates do not just get the votes from the place, part of the city that they live in. It's their responsibility to go out and convince the full city that they are there to represent their interests. So I'm definitely in support of having all of the candidates be at large for those reasons. And especially the fact that we need to have people to be able to run for next year. I'm concerned if we'll even have enough candidates to run, next time, let alone who's going to run from each specific ward.
So are we taking a consensus on how we're moving forward now, or are we doing that at the regular session?
Well,
Mr.
we
President.
want to discuss it so that we can move forward. We have our next committee meeting, I believe it's next Thursday, so that we can move forward with this. We wanted to get a consensus. It sounded like what I'm hearing from the council is that the desire is for the mayor to be selected from amongst the 7, rather than have the citizens vote specifically for the mayor, which I disagree with, but I will have to go with what the majority is. And that of the composition of the council, that's the piece where I'm not exactly sure. That's why I was stating explicitly that my support is for all candidates to be at large. And I think that's what Councilwoman Jones was expressing as well.
Okay. So
if I'm wrong, please let me know.
So we have one part of the equation done. Now we're just trying to solve the other part of the equation. I think I heard Mr. Herring, Councilman Herring, say something.
Yeah, let me just say this. It really, I think the point is being missed about representation. Black people fought for representation in Congress. Black people fought for representation in Prince George's County when all we had was no representation, because the lines were drawn so that we couldn't have representation. And so our voices weren't being heard. And just because we're all Black community doesn't mean all voices are being heard fairly. So to sit there and say that at large works across the board when it doesn't, because again, when we had all at large last time, it was 5 from Ward 1 and 2 that used to live in Ward 1, a majority coming from Ward 1. And at large do not represent the city fully and completely, because again, at large are not in here. A prime example is when I was talking about the snow. When I was talking about the snow and the streets being completely paved over, at large council members clearly said I was not telling the truth, and they weren't, and defended the employee over the citizens who were trying to get in and out of the ward. And so that wasn't fair representation. Again, 2, 2, and 1 gives fair representation across the board, because the at large should be supposed to represent all 3, all the whole city. So everybody will have 3. So if you got 3 from Ward 3 and that person is only going to represent Ward 3, that's a problem. If you're an at-large candidate. And definitely at-large does not benefit the city as a whole. I don't care what nobody says, because again, I just ran down a list of things that's going on in Ward 1 and nobody said anything about what they knew about it, because you're not here. Just like I don't know what's going on in Ward 3. I don't know everything that's going on in Ward 3. I don't know what's going on with the streets over there in Woodmore or over there on Cousins, because I'm not over there all the time. I'm in Ward 1 most of the time. I go in and out of here. Just like I don't know everything that's going on in Ward 2. And right now, Ward 2 is being left out altogether because they only got 1 representative and right now on the council. And that's why I don't see how, ward representation is a big part of people representation, and people having equal access to government, and people being fairly represented, and people having a voice fairly, having a voice to speak up for them fairly, in line with everybody else that's in the community, and not one side of the city basically, manipulating the elected body. Because again, I can harp and say, okay, well, I don't think it's fair that we retained a lawyer to fight the Alta Woodmore project, and all that money is going on over there. So what are you going to give me for Ward 1, or what are you going to put in Ward 2? The same amount of money in Ward 2 that you're putting over there for the attorney that you got over there. I didn't see that. I didn't say that. But then again, some people may look at that. But then again, y'all got enough people to say we want to do it. I'm just saying that, and if you don't live in a neighborhood, you know your neighborhood when you live in your neighborhood. You don't know my neighborhood. You don't know what's going on at Ward 1. You don't know what's going on at the bus stop at 704 and Glenarden Parkway. Or what's happening over at A1 in the strip mall. That I got to deal with, coming in and out of there in the evenings. Or up at the 7-Eleven, and then I got 1 ward representative, and I think it's not fair. It really isn't fair. And we talk about fair voting rights and fair representation is based on how many people each person is representing and what area of the community do they come from. That's why DC has so many wards. That's why Prince George's County has so many districts. That's why the state of Maryland have so many legislative districts and state senators, because they want to make sure everybody is represented. And then that's why they're all not running at large, because everybody needs to be represented by the people that's in their community. And that's why you got to live in the community that you represent. And even though Glenarden is small, it still is large, because there's a lot going on in this community. So again, at large is not a thing. I think two and one would be fair across the board. Then no matter how big Glenarden grew, everybody would be fairly represented across the board. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you. I'll quickly say before I go to Councilwoman Fareed, that I travel the city all the time. Actually, I'm probably in Ward. I'm in Ward 1 almost every day. And so I'm an at-large member. I go to the 7-Eleven. I go to the shopping market where I don't know what's the chicken and fish. I forgot the name of it. Visit the Horace and Dickey's, try to, support, have been a while, but try to support the local businesses. And actually in driving, and my son goes to the school in Ward 1. And so, seeing that kids did not have a proper crosswalk to go into, I spoke with, Ms. Habita and spoke with Mr. Simpson, and they were able to make sure that there were crosswalks so people would not be in students' way as they tried to cross the street. When the trees were growing in the spring, and you could hardly see the stop sign, so people were running the stop sign. Also talked to Mr. Simpson and Ms. Habita to get them to move the stop sign in front of the trees so we didn't have to cut the myrtle trees and people still see the stop sign. I understand what Councilman Herring is saying. I mean, my vote would be still just to keep it the same way it is right now, but we are, at the very least, I'm confident other council members are out there too. We are out there. Now, intimately, do I know what's going on at 704, Johnson Avenue? No, but I also understand what Vice President Ferguson talks about, that citizens will call who they're comfortable calling. They necessarily wouldn't call me. I, at some point, would get calls from people I get calls from people from all over the place. So, but I just want to say that, as it relates to me, I truly value the city as a whole. And I believe most of the stuff that I've fought for has actually targeted the whole city and not just one demographic. But I'll go over to Councilwoman Fareed.
Thank you, Council President. I mean, I think it's definitely important that there's representation across the city. And I personally don't think that even our current ward structure is fair to that, because ward representatives should be representative of the population. And right now, having or proposing that we go 2-2-2, the city is not equally divided in that way. There are we don't have the census records, but I'm certain that there are a lot more residents in Ward 3 than there are in Ward 2 and Ward 1. So saying that Ward 3 should only have 2 would not be a fair representation to those citizens that live there, because there's a much larger concentration of those citizens. And also in speaking about representing, and I think it's exactly right, we need to honor our forebears who fought for the right for us to vote. So I think it's ironic that we're saying that, but then also saying that we should not allow the citizens to be able to vote for the mayor, which they are currently allowed to do. So we would be taking that away and now bringing that, taking that authority away from the citizens and bringing that into the council, who, yes, we are elected officials, but they would be electing us as council members, not as their necessarily representative to say who the mayor is. So I think we just need to be consistent in the arguments that we're making as it relates to representation, because again, right now, the citizens are allowed to vote for the mayor. So I do not see why we would want to eliminate that going forward. And secondly, you know, the ward representatives more closely mimics like the House of Delegates, and that is based upon the population. And so if we had to do that distribution, it would not be 2-2-2. It would be more like 3, you know, 1-1 or something like that. Like there's a significant population in Ward 3. And so it's not fair to say that their voices should not be fully represented, you know, so that we can have equal distribution across the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Green. Vice President Ferguson?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that again, I'm really stuck on the fact that while we may not know individually what is going on in every ward, but that doesn't mean that we do not know what's going on. And then even with the ward representatives, you know, we don't always have to come and tell them things if people coming to us, unless we, they don't know everything. Just like for instance, with one particular grant that pretty much flew off the table. I mean, I don't think the funds lasted 2 months. I worked very closely, I went to their houses, I had to come over here. At least I think it was like 12 citizens. 2 was from Ward 2, 1 was from Ward 3, and 9 was from Ward 1. And I'm sure that, I mean, I don't believe that, Councilman Herring knows any of the 9, but they were some of the citizens that he represents were being taken care of, which to me is collectively with the whole council, because, this is something that the council put together. We did a legislation for these grants, and it's not about me knowing, it's about when we do the report, this is what happened, and this goes under the council's report. So I might not know everything, and I live in Ward 1. I do know some of the problems that's up at the tobacco shop and at the bus stops and the 7-Eleven and behind the 7-Eleven and at behind A1 Liquors. And there's so much going on in apartments that is just unheard of. I mean, I don't know whether a councilman Aaron knows about that, but it's a lot, just trash and just all kinds of things and other things. So I don't want to go like, this and that and tit for tat. I think we collectively support the city. And I don't think that, one has to be designated as a ward rep, a single ward rep to do that. I mean, I know, there's a lot of, council members that support different people. I know Erica had, Ms. Jones was saying she's from Ward 1. So a lot of people will contact her and may not contact myself living in Ward 1 or Councilman Herring. But that's because they know Councilwoman Jones. So I just don't see that like I said, I'm adamant, but I'm just the one person that I know that the citizens do like ward representatives. So I could go either way, but I would say, Ward 1, if we're gonna have ward representative 1, not 2. And again, those that are at large, respect those that are large, because, we work across the board. And like I said, I do believe that even the Ward 1, the ward reps, they are not, even though they're Ward 1, if a ward, someone comes from Ward 3, call Ward 1 rep or Ward 3, Ward 2, you're going to respond, because overall we're here for the city, even though, you have your own ward. So it doesn't take away from anything. But another thing I want to say to add to what Ms. Jones said was that the people that are chosen are the people's choice. They're the people's choice, they choose them. And so there's nothing that we can do about that. So that's the people's choice, whether it's, at large or whatever, they're gonna choose who they choose. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jones.
Thank you, Council President. I do have one question for Councilwoman Fareed. If we elect a mayor, if the mayor is still elected, will they be involved in the legislation process, or will they still be the ceremonial entity that Councilman Herring speaks of?
So that what we've already agreed to, took a consensus on, is that the mayor will be one of the 7 council members. They will have legislative responsibilities. They will be the chair of the council. They will serve in those ceremonial capacities. When the governor convenes the mayors from Maryland, it will be that person. So it's not just a ceremonial role. They will have, even in what was described for the buoy role, it is more than ceremonial. It did speak about them kind of having some authorities. And so we definitely need to have a person who's designated to do that. But in our structure, this person will also, preside over the meetings. They would have voting capacity. So you should probably think about the mayor role as the council president plus the ceremonial aspects and other kind of state type or in federal authorities that the mayor would have.
So then are we electing 6 persons and a mayor?
Well, that's the question. There's going to be, the body is going to be 7.
Right.
That's the question I'm asking. My thought is that it should be, when you go to vote on your ballot, there's someone that you vote specifically for as mayor, and then the other 6 are the other members.
Council persons.
Versus you go and you just choose amongst 7. So, but are you asking that because you're going to change your consensus around? Because right now we have that the mayor is to be elected among the council members. So that the mayor.
No, I was just trying to get a gauge on how, if the mayor is elected by the people, then how, what would their responsibilities be? Would it be just ceremonial as it is today, or will it be, will they be working with the council?
Yeah, so how they're elected is not going to determine what their responsibilities are. Whether we have them voted separately by the citizens, so effectively they would be an at-large candidate, an at-large council member candidate,
Okay.
or selected amongst the 7 council members that were elected however we decide, if it's going to be all at large or 1 per ward or however we're going to do it, that mayor role would still have the same responsibilities.
Okay, so I think maybe we need to hear from the people of the city whether they want to elect the mayor, or if they want the council to be, hopefully at the public hearing, or maybe some emails sent to the reps that we can substantiate, can give us a good direction between now and Thursday after next for your meeting.
Yeah, I mean, personally, because we did have a public hearing on it, I feel like the resounding message from the citizens was that they wanted to weigh in on who the mayor was. That was the issue, that they felt like we were taking away their vote. We were taking away their right to choose who the mayor is. So I believe that we can preserve that sort of institution with the citizens being able to do that and still change our structure of government. We do not need to say that just because the mayor is going to be a part of the legislative body, that now the citizens don't have to vote for them anymore. That's an additional change that we don't have to make. We could keep it as the mayor being elected by the citizens, the mayor being a part of the council and having all those authorities to chair chair the meetings, have a right to vote, be the ceremonial head, be the point of contact for, state, federal, whatever. They're not connected in that way. Like, we don't have to do that.
Okay, so every year for the 4-year term, every year you'll elect a new mayor amongst the body, or it'll just stay the mayor that the people elected?
I mean, that's what we need to decide. I feel like the title of mayor, whether we want to say it's ceremonial or not, the title of mayor does have significance. And I think changing every year, the mayor, I mean, even if you think about the signs for the city. This says the city of Glenarden has the mayor's name. Are we going to change that every single year? That doesn't, that really doesn't, to me, make sense. I think that we should continue to elect the mayor apart from the other 6 council members, and that person should be elected for the 4 years, because that was the expression of will of the citizens when we did have the public hearing. It is the most consistent with, kind of what our structure is now. It allows the citizens to have that voice, and it doesn't impact the anything else. The 6 council members will still be elected up, but the question now is how will we compose those 6 council members? Will they be all at large, 2 for each ward, 1 for each ward, and 3 at large?
4 at large.
So, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. I am only 1 vote. But I think that if we're going to learn from history and make things better, then I strongly urge the council to not consider having the mayor lead the council and be the face of the city for 4 years and try to operate a functional government. That just, if we've learned anything in the past 3 years, it's just not going to work. That's not going to work. And I think it'll revert back to, it'll just be chaotic. Now, if we were adamant that, one, I think we're just talking around and everybody's going to vote. Whether you call them a council member or a mayor, like, the citizens didn't vote me to be council president, but yet they have me as the council president because among my peers, I would think that you guys have trusted me enough over the past 3 years to lead these meetings and to be council president. That one, to earn this position it's a humbling position, and grateful to the council to be elected council president for 3 years. That says something. I would think among your peers, but what we have now, we've had someone that if we kept it where the mayor was elected, even though again people are still going to be electing their represented officials, to where you have a mayor that would ignore the rest of the council, have events when they want to, not provide support for the events that they have, who would, out of spite, not sign checks because it relates to someone that he or she does not like, where they would not be forthcoming with the rest of the council. It just would. Not for 4 years. Not for 4 years, in my opinion. Like I said, I respect everybody's opinion here. And there's a lot of things that citizens don't know that go on behind closed doors, and where they will think, oh, it's all cherry and roses. But no, there's a lot of, there could be a lot of unethical things that are going on, that the council hands are now tied because we're stuck with someone for 4 years. And that, again, that's just my opinion. Citizens can come out and citizens can vote. And I agree, Erica, the little bit of feedback that we had, because there wasn't a good sample size of the whole city, but there were some who came and said they wanted to keep the vote for the mayor, but that was a handful of people. That was not, thousands of people that came out, or hundreds of the 6,200 people that we have in the city that came out to voice their concern for. So I'm open to continue to listen until I see something different. My vote will be to elect that person from the council. And if by some reason hundreds of people did come out and say that they wanted to still vote for their mayor, then my choice would be to not have that person lead the council.
Okay, I just need to make a point of clarification. I do see Council Vice President's hands up. I just want to make a point of clarification because I wanted to be super clear that the objective of the Charter Review Committee was not to change anything because of any body that is in a particular role right now. The
Correct.
objective
Understood.
of the Charter Review Committee and the change to the structure was to create a more efficient, effective government. This is a model that I forget who said it. I think it was Councilwoman Jones or Vice President Ferguson. This is a model that is more and more being adopted across Maryland municipalities because it is a more efficient way of working. The municipalities in Maryland are not like Washington, D.C. or New York City, where there is truly enough representation and resources, et cetera, for a council and a mayor and a manager to operate effectively. Our municipalities are small enough, and it has been proven to be more effective. I spoke to a delegate about this just the other day, that this is the way, and it's the best practice. And in those best practices, they are not electing the mayor every single year. That mayor is elected and is in that role for the reasons why I just stated. We cannot change our signage every year. There is still a need for there to be a mayor. The governor is elected for a term. The governor calls on the mayor. There are associations, et cetera, that the mayor is to be responsible for. And if we're talking about being efficient and effective, if there's possible turnover every single year, that's almost the opposite of being efficient and effective. But I just, I know I started talking about other things, but I just want to reiterate the point because I do not want it being said that we're changing this charter because of who the current mayor is. That is absolutely not the case. And we're not changing it. And I do not want us to move forward considering who might even run for it next time. The purpose of this change in the charter is to make a more efficient operation and structure for us so that the city can operate more effectively, irrespective of the individual people who may or may not be elected to those roles.
So just briefly in response, my decision is not based on any one individual. My vote is simply based on what works. As you stated, Councilwoman Fareed, that more and more people are going to this model. I agree. And there's a reason why they're going through that model. It works better. When you have separations, look, I was one of the council members that said that, look, whoever is in the mayor seat, whoever it is at a disadvantage because there's nothing there for the mayor currently to do. And I agree with giving the mayor some voting rights on legislation to have the mayor be a part of the government and not off to the side. I think the current structure is why there has been the government has not been operating efficiently for so many years. But I agree. My vote again is not based on whoever's in office right now. My vote is based on what works the most efficiently and how we can progressively move the city forward. And just to one point that you made, Councilwoman Fareed, I don't think the mayor's name, whoever it is, should be on the. I mean, at least if I was the mayor, I would not want my name on the thing because I agree, changing that every year or changing that every 4 years is enough. We're just not big enough to hold that type of weight. The governor, yes, you see the signs, they change it every 4 years. It's fine. It's the governor of Maryland. The city of DC, the city of New York, Chicago, LA. These are big major cities. We're not that big.
I know,
so
but
sorry.
I'm sorry, that would make us inconsistent with every other municipality. Even the tiniest of municipalities have that information. So when people are passing through Glenarden, coming down MLK, they're not going to know.
That's fine. That's fine. That's just my personal opinion. That's just me. The most of the council may want, city of Glenarden, Mayor Erica Fareed on there. I don't know. I'm just saying my personal preference would just be to just have it. And I mean, maybe that's because I don't like my name plastered everywhere, but that's just my personal opinion.
But the only other thing I was going to say is that we need a consensus because our charter review meeting is next Thursday. And when we're not able to get consensus from the council, we can't move forward. So we're
Okay,
stopped right now until we get a consensus on what we're going to do relating to these two issues. One, how will we elect the mayor? Two, how will we have how will we represent the city? With
okay. So let's go to Vice President Ferguson, and then we'll just do a consensus and move on. And I see Councilman Herring's unmuted too. So Vice President Ferguson, and then Councilman Herring, and then do a consensus.
Well, as far as the mayor, whether we do it by voting the mayor separate, which I do remember there was a handful of people that said they preferred to do it that way, or whether we do it out of the council, I don't think that it would have to be mandatory that, I mean, I wouldn't think that whoever the mayor was chosen out of the council, it should automatically be a 4-year seat for that mayor, just like it's a 4-year seat for us being council members. I mean, we don't have to every year do that. If they're going to be the mayor, then it is automatically whoever it is will be the mayor for that duration of that term. But I don't. Let's see. The other thing I was thinking too is that we're talking about the mayor, we're talking about the council. I think again, maybe we need to sometime reiterate whether it's next week in the public meeting, what is the role? I mean, you know, as far as the city manager is concerned, city manager council. We're talking about the role of the mayor, and then of course the council do what they do, but so they can understand what the difference is. And I do agree that, and I've heard that this is the way to go as far as this city manager council form of government. And just as far as the sign, the name being on the sign, as far as I know, and I may be wrong, but I don't remember ever a mayor being put on there. That was just this mayor put a name on that on the entry signs. That wasn't a normal thing that was done by the mayor. So that was just by preference. So that doesn't have to be a practice. If it did happen to switch every year, that Councilman Herring can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't ever remember seeing a mayor's name on those boards.
Okay. And just a point of clarification, because I want to. We've been doing this charter review process for a long time. We have already taken a consensus on the fact that, so this is not under question right now. We are moving to a mayor, to a council manager form of government. We've already took a consensus, and we've already put it in the proposed changes for the charter that this person will not be elected every year. They will be there for 4 years. We've already done that. So please, can we not go back and relitigate stuff that we've already done, because that will require us to go back to previous sections in the charter and change. What we're talking about right now is just how will the mayor be elected, either separately or amongst the 7 council members, and then how will we do the ward representation? Okay,
fair enough. So we'll hear Councilman Herring, and then we'll do the consensus, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just want to say, and Councilwoman Ferguson is right. We took the names off of the street, off the entranceway signs, because we don't need them on it. But again, we need the reason why we're where we are right now is because we tried to do 2 types of government: a mayor, city manager, council form of government, with the strong council, weak mayor, trying to appease some people for this and some people for that. And so we got a mixture, we got a hybrid government, which isn't efficient. And that's where we're running into now. So my thing is, we need to just, like I said, I mean, when I talk to people, they're fine with voting for all council members. That's it. And the council picking a mayor from amongst themselves, because right now the mayor actually really has no power really at all right now, and they really can't do anything. And again, all the successful governments, a lot of the successful governments had the council, city manager form of government. And I don't see where we really need to. Sometimes you just got to just make that move and see how it works. Again, I think it'll be more efficient. I think things could flow much better without a lot of interference. And like I said, I'm not talking about who's in office or who's not in office. I'm looking at down the line and in the future on how the government is going to function when it comes down to trying to get things done in the most efficient way possible. Again, city manager, council form of government, I don't think we should. I think we should just select the mayor from amongst ourselves, and it could be a ceremonial position and move on and try it out and see how it works. I mean, again, it isn't something that can't be changed, but I just feel that right now what we have isn't working. And to throw the mayor, voting for a mayor in the mix again, we're going right back to where we were before. So we're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on what we already have and trying to fix it that way. So,
Okay, so
all right, thank you.
we have two so far. Council president for mayor being elected by the council, Councilman Herring, mayor being elected by the council.
All right, Councilman Jones, where do you stand?
Mayor elected by the council.
Okay, and Vice President Ferguson?
I had to step away. What was?
It's either the mayor being elected by the council or the mayor being elected by the people.
Council.
Okay, so
All right.
here we go. Mayor to be elected among the council members. Now for the ward members. I mean, for the council members.
Representation.
Yes, so Councilwoman Jones, what did that mean, representation?
One ward member for each ward and the rest at large.
Okay, so how we have it right now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Sorry, Council President, I just took over. Go ahead. Tired.
I know. Councilman Herring?
You know me, I'm 2, 2, 2, and 1.
2, 2, 2, and 1. Vice President Ferguson?
1 ward and rest at large.
Okay. Councilman Fareed, I don't think
I'm fine with 1 per ward and 4 at large.
I'm also fine with 1 per ward and 4 at large.
Okay, great. So that's how we're gonna move forward. Now we have a follow-up question. Just since we're going to say that the council members are going to select the mayor and we're going to do 1 per ward with 4 at large, are we saying that any of the council members can be the mayor, even if they're a ward representative?
I would like that. Yeah, I think so.
All right, we got it. Then.
So that means it's pro tem? It means it's pro tem?
Mayor pro tem is like the vice president. So
okay.
Mayor is the mayor and mayor pro tem is the vice president.
Okay, so the council president will not be the mayor unless the council comes to a consensus to say this is what we want.
Well, they effectively are. So how we did it in the charter was wherever it said council president, we've just replaced that to say mayor. So every responsibility that the council president right now is what the mayor would do. And the mayor pro tem would do what the council vice president does.
Councilman Herring, you say something?
Yeah, Mr. President, I would like to ask that, this is an important issue, and I would like to ask that they reach out to the other 2 council members that are not in here just to get their opinion on it so that they can have a say. I mean, I'm not making a difference, but I think on an important issue like this, everybody should be heard from.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll make that a small topic of discussion at the regular session to hear from the other 2.
Our charter review meeting is on Thursday.
We can just do an email and ask them.
Well, we already got a consensus, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we have a consensus.
Yeah.
You got.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move this forward. I think we already spoke about opera funds for gold room renovations. Is there anything left to be said on that?
Mr. President.
Yes.
So, I mean, whatever renovations they're going to be done, I hope we're going to see them before they're done.
Yes.
Or anything put into place. Okay, that's it. All right, thank you.
Yes. All right, next up is the data center. Ms. Habita, did you want to touch on that?
Yes. Okay, the schedule for the planning board is, they need a letter from the city no later than February 27th. The planning board meeting is March the 14th. So in terms of what's planned for the old Landover Mall site, the 89 acres is planned for a data center that would be, as I understand it, 4 buildings, and it would be housing and secure facilities, rows and racks of all of the switches, storage systems, servers, routers, and security devices, and supported by power and cooling systems, backup generators, and cabling plants, which is typical for a data center. The questions that council needs to consider is in terms of the timing of this, you have an opportunity for the public hearing to have Mr. Hatcher from representing the Lerner family. He's their legal counsel. Give a presentation at the public hearing and invite the citizens to, be able to ask questions at that public hearing. And Mr. Hatcher has indicated to me that he is willing to come on the next public hearing date, which is next Tuesday. The questions that you may want to ask on that public hearing is how many employees are going to work in the facility? What are the hours the data center would be open? There are going to be 4 of them in 4 different quadrants and 4 different subdivisions. Will they operate, will the buildings operate in shift work? Are they going to be open 24 hours, 365 days a year? If the data center operates 24 hours, how much traffic will there be on Bright Seat Road? There is in the subdivision plans Evart Street on the this side of, no, the other side of Woodmore. There's an Evart Street, and then there's an Evart Street that appears on the subdivision plans. It was, my understanding, was previously considered for a connecting bridge to Woodmore Town Center. It was never built because the price tag was too high. By the developer considered it to be too high. So the question is there any discussion, any thought about any kind of connection over EVARTs between the two, between Woodmore Town Center and the data center? Is there any value at least a footbridge so that the folks who are working in the data centers could have access to a pedestrian bridge to cross over to get to restaurants and stores at Woodmore? All of those questions are ones that I came up with, and you probably will have more. But what I'd like to have from council's consensus to accept Mr. Hatcher's offer to come and make a presentation at your public hearing next week. He's agreed to come.
Can we do that at our regular session?
Well, I
Is
think
he-
if you do it your regular session, you would want to probably vote and take a position. At least if you heard the citizen comments at the public hearing, then you could weigh how you want, what you want to put in a letter to Park and Planning by February 27th, giving yourself more time. It's up to the council to decide, when you want to do the presentation by Mr. Hatcher. He is available next week.
Councilman Herring?
Yeah, so Mr. Hatcher, you say he's the attorney for Lerner?
Yes.
Or I'm gonna tell you, we really need to get ahead of this. And I think we do need to hear from him next week in order to make a decision, because we may need to call up somebody. Because we don't, is he gonna present any plans, or they got a CSP available, or?
I think the plans, right now it's in a subdivision phase. So the plans are the 4 quadrants, which is my understanding there'll be 4 buildings. So I would imagine the most you'll see is the subdivision, and maybe they have conceptuals. I do know Mr. Hatcher asked for a link to this evening's meeting, and I think he is on the meeting this evening if you wanted to ask him questions now. I'm putting him on the spot, but he is one of the folks who is here this evening. He wanted to find out a little more about us and the discussion. So
Who did you say?
Mr. Hatcher, Chris Hatcher, asked to have a link to the meeting this evening. He is on the Zoom call. If you wanted to ask questions about any of the questions that Mr. Herring just raised.
If he's on, I would like to know.
Yes, he's here. Chris Hatcher is listed.
Mr. Hatcher? Mr. Hatcher?
Are you still awake, Mr. Hatcher?
Okay.
I think we do need to, because again, we need to know what's going on before, you're not going to have much time to take a position. And what is that? Our regular meeting is what, the 15th?
The 19th. I'm sorry.
19th.
The 20th, because the 19th is the holiday.
So you'd have to you only have 7 days to come up with a, what's it called? I think we need to hear from him now so that we can actually discuss it.
Okay.
So we'll keep it next week.
On the public hearing?
Yeah, at the public hearing.
Okay.
We should have time then anyway, so.
Okay. That's all I had for that. Wanted to.
Okay.
The drawings are available, and they're available by drop down, the Dropbox rather, because they're very large.
But that land, that's not in Glenarden proper, is
No,
it?
it is not. It's just outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they'll give us this council a week to develop questions and we can address them next week.
Okay.
All right. Well, you're still up. We're still up with the review of property assessments for FY25. You requested a special work session to review.
Yeah, I'm wondering if council would be open to reviewing the property assessments. They usually come in around the 15th of February. There's a good portion of the revenue that the city has, it comes in the form of real property taxes. And so you'll get a picture based on the numbers that we receive. If you're willing to do it at your regular meeting, just to have that information shared. What I would like to see is some direction from the council in terms of, well, if the numbers are pretty low, then we probably know the direction the council will go in. If they're kind of high or assessments are increase, or they're in the middle kind of thing. Since a large portion of the revenues is coming from property taxes, that would give us some indication of what we're looking at for the next fiscal year.
Okay, and how long do you think?
I don't think it will take long to look at the numbers. The numbers will be what they are, and then the discussion can be held in terms of how council feels about the tax rate in the coming year, based on if it's a 2% increase, that's one thing. If it's 10 or 15 or whatever, then it's another picture.
So if we get them on the 15th, if we could get them on the 15th, that'll give council some time to look at it before the 20th. And if council is not ready, then we can set a date for either that week or early the following week for a remote session.
Okay.
But I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Because I don't know if a full separate meeting will be warranted, or if there aren't. I mean, yeah. Because we're not going over the whole budget, we're just going over it just
Right.
assessment. So let's plan to put that on the agenda for the regular session.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. President,
Councilman Henry.
Ms. Hobbit, have we gotten the constant year tax rate calculation sheet?
We will get that when we see the assessments. It comes as a package, so it'll be coming in around the 15th.
Okay, okay.
We're gonna call them to find out if they're on schedule, because that's usually when it comes in.
Okay, so yeah, so could you just make sure that the council gets that, just to
Yes.
be, yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Herring. Next up is the police building. Mr. Herring, you're up.
Okay, yeah, I'm really concerned about this police building. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess my concern is, again, we're going for this bond bill and the state's talking about budget issues. And I think that we should be farther along than what we actually are. We got $400,000 grant and we have nothing really to show the state that we're ready to move forward and build this building. I think when we got the $400,000 grant, we should have already had an architect on board to give us some type of architectural designs. We should have a place set, because again, when it comes down to situations like this, when the state starts talking about budgets and tight budgets, they're going to look at the programs or the projects that are really ready to move forward. Right now, we actually just really have a conceptual site plan and an idea. And I hate to see them, they submit a bond bill for $2 million. I'm almost sure we probably won't get that. We'll probably maybe get half of that, but then again, we may only get a fourth of that, because they may say, I got $400,000 already. You really don't have anything ready to go. You haven't got no architectural designs. You haven't even got a spot. So we'll just give you $600,000 and we'll have to be, be settled, be fine with that. I think we really need to be moving forward on this, on a design concept for this. I did talk to the chief today, and he said he's going to be meeting with an architectural firm that actually does police stations, I think this week or early next week. And I was just telling him that we really need to get briefed on that. And we as a council need to come to the table to see what we actually looking for and what we want in a building. Because again, I've seen it happen plenty of times when the budgets are tight and the money tight, they're going to be looking at the projects in the municipalities that are really, really ready to go and not going to hold up $1 million for us to get ready. And I think we really need to move on it. And I think we need to be really farther along than what we are. And I'm just saying, and we definitely need to get some architectural designs and pick a spot where we want to build this building. Because I mean, right now, nobody can even tell me where we're going to build a building. Because I mean, there's a couple of spots that are perfect. People are saying the back lot, but then the back lot has no infrastructure in there. So that's gonna be more expensive, because you got to lay everything in there, the electrical, water, sewage, all of that. When we got some other spots that are already ready to go. So, I mean, these are the decisions that we really need to make and we need to move on. Even if we get an architect in there, they're gonna want to know where you want to place the building. So I think, in order to get, I hate to see it, we only get a fourth of what we're asking for. And instead of being able to start building in 2 years, we're going to be looking at 4 years down the road or 5 years down the road, because we haven't gotten all the money. And we got to remember that the first 400,000 we got, the clock is already ticking on using that. So I just, like I said, again, I just want to see us get something done, but I don't want to see it get stalled, because, we're sitting still again. And I actually told the chief he really need to really look at getting an architect online, see what they're looking at, and meeting with the council to see what we want. Because again, it comes down to the council, because it's a public building. We got to be all up in the mix of this with permits and designs and everything else. So, and that's all I wanted to bring up.
Okay,
on that.
well, I agree, and we can move forward. The chief can give us a report. Actually, in his in his report and during a regular session of just how the meeting went, and we just make sure that we're collectively pushing this forward so we can get across the goal line. All right. Last one is for last one is for you, Councilman Harry.
Yeah, ethics board. We need to get somebody on the ethics board. And and council members can also appoint also. So I think we just really need to get a full complement of people on this ethics board. I think we have 3, but I think we need to make sure that those 3 are up to speed on what they need to do and what their responsibilities are. Because again, you know, some things probably need to be brought to them for their review. And I think we need 5. I think we need to find a full complement of members. But again, it isn't just up for the mayor to appoint. The council, and I made sure that was put in legislation that the mayor or the council can appoint members to the ethics board, and we need to move forward with that. I see issues, and I think there need to be some review on some of these issues that's coming down the pike.
Okay.
All right, and that's it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Herring. I'm in agreement with you. And I think collectively we can, you know, garner some support or some volunteers and, you know, push it forward. All right, Councilman Jones.
Yeah, with the ethics board, didn't we just receive a person that wanted to be on the ethics board? What happened with his requests and resume and things?
Council President.
Thank you.
Yes, Council Clerk.
We actually received 2, and I passed it on to council, but I didn't get a response. So there are actually 2 people that have expressed a desire, and one of them actually did include their credentials.
Okay. Well, if council can review those, and we can make a decision on those. Soon. Okay, but doesn't mean it's gonna work out, so we still should keep our ears open for, you know, qualified candidates who want to be on the ethics committee.
Council President, excuse me. Can we ask the council clerk to send that information again? I do have the gentleman that sent with the resume, but I don't know who this other person is that she speaks of that requested. Thank you.
Thank you.
President, are we gonna get resolutions for these? I mean, I saw them come through, but don't they need to be resolutions that we vote on?
Yes, they can. So Council Clerk, if you can go ahead and put them in resolution form, then we can move forward and decide whether we want to table it, decide whether we want to, you know, talk to those individuals, things like that, because I'm pretty sure Councilman Herring is going to want to talk to.
Yeah, and I was going to say that. I honestly don't think we should do resolutions until we talk to them. I don't believe in putting a piece of paper out there and putting it back after, you know, if we decide not to. I just don't, you know.
Okay. Yes, Madam Clerk.
I'll resend the information that I have.
Thank you. And then we can reach out and schedule some time for those council members who want to be involved in speaking with the candidates. Set some time to speak with the candidates. All right. I haven't said that. That is the end of our regular agenda. We briefly have to go into closed session to discuss a legal matter. So, and the council reserves the right to go into closed session anytime during a public meeting, which we are going to vote to do now. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mentioned that. So just want to make sure I cover all of the Opens Meetings Act requirement. The reason to go into the closed meetings to discuss legal matters. So is there a motion to close the open session and go into closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Council Clerk, did I miss anything?
No, sir, you did not.
Okay. Councilwoman Jones?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fareed? I can hear you, Councilwoman Fareed.
Yes.
Councilman Herring,
Yes.
Vice President Ferguson,
Yes.
and Council President is a yes. Thank you, citizens, for joining our meeting. Our next meeting is next Tuesday at 7 p.m. in the Gold Room, which is our public hearing for people to come out and voice their opinion on pending legislation. So look forward to seeing you there. Outside of that, this is 10:46 and the open portion of this meeting is now closed.